Hogwarts, my spells develop infinitely. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 51 lets you know what cruelty is. In a grove in Cornwall County, several tightly wrapped wizards were running hurriedly with suitcases. There was obvious excitement on their faces. After all, they knew that the suitcases they had robbed contained the materials for 10 fire dragons. In the wizarding world, there is no cheap material used in dragons. Even dragon dung is a very precious material for alchemy and potion. The materials for 10 fire dragons, even if divided equally, would be enough for each of them to spend a lifetime. However, despite their excitement, they couldn't help but feel a shadow over their hearts when they thought about the pursuit they would face next. We robbed the Romanian dragon farm. The dragon farm will not let us go, and the British Ministry of Magic will also be searching vigorously. Do you think we can get to the other side? In response, the leading wizard sneered, revealing extraordinary confidence. Don't scare yourself. The dragon farm is indeed powerful, and it is said that it is related to vampires. However, as long as they leave Romania, their power will be greatly reduced. As for the British Ministry of Magic, isn't it also recognized that it is dominated by rubbish? There have been so many things happening in the UK recently, including dark wizards and the theft of ghosts, but the British Ministry of Magic hasn't made any moves, so there's really nothing to worry about. Of course, in the past, no one wanted to provoke a buyer who had the financial strength to purchase 10 fire dragons at once, not to mention that those who buy dragon materials in large quantities are either potion masters or alchemists, or even worse, some dragon research organizations. God knows what they can do if we mess with them, but this transaction is different. I found out that the one who bought the fire dragon materials was not an alchemist, not a potion master, nor a research organization. He was just an 11-year-old wizard. Speaking of this, the leading wizard looked more and more proud. An 11-year-old little wizard may have some status and wealth, but to us, he is the softest persimmon. It may take several years or even decades to get such an opportunity, so who else can I pinch if not him? It's better to rob him of his fire dragon materials than to rob those ruthless guys. Can he come here and argue with us? The wizard waved his wand dismissively. If you can't beat those potion masters and alchemists, how can you beat an 11-year-old wizard? If he really comes, I will teach him a lesson on behalf of his parents and let him know what it means to be extremely vicious. The decisive words made the other wizards burst into laughter. Their confidence surged and they ran faster. After running a little further, you will reach the preset door key location and use the door key to escape. By then, wealth and glory will be waiting for them. As they were running, these wizards suddenly had a strange feeling. Do you feel that the sky seems a little cloudy than before? Yeah, it's very strange. It seems like a shadow has been covering us since a while ago, and I seem to hear the sound of a fire dragon flapping its wings. Several people looked at each other, then looked up at the sky at the same time, and saw an underage Ukrainian iron-bellied dragon spreading its wings in the sky and coming above them. The 6 or 7 meter long wingspan cast a shadow that just covered them. The pupils of these people shrank slightly, and they felt confused. Fire dragon, follow us here. What's going on? Among them were dragon farm employees and magical animal hunters, and they knew the habits of fire dragons very well. How could a Ukrainian iron-bellied dragon appear in this place, and how could it be possible to follow them all the time? This is illogical. Several wizards stopped one after another, drew their wands, and stood alert with serious expressions. And in the air, the Ukrainian iron-bellied fire dragon was naturally Charles, who used the magic animagus. He had paraded from St. Mungo's Hospital to the nearest place to Cornwall County he had been to, then transformed into dragon form and tracked the scent from a piece of rag he had taken from Bill. At this moment, seeing the wizards running hurriedly in the grove below, Charles' eyes were filled with coldness. You stole my things and you want to run away? It has always been me, Ciel, who has taken away others' share. How could anyone take away my share? A low dragon roar echoed above the grove among those wizards. Several of them looked at one wizard. This is the only one among them who has learned dragon language and knows the meaning of dragon roar. Now facing the fire dragon transformed by Charles, everyone was unsure and urgently needed an interpreter. Quick, translate what this fire dragon is saying. The Wizard, who was fluent in dragon language, was stunned for a moment, then quickly translated, "This fire dragon said we stole its things. It also said that it was always the sharer that took other people's share, and no one could take its things and leave alive." After these words were spoken, the leading wizard was stunned. "Wait a minute, what do you call it, Char?" It said its name was Char. The wizard had a look of doubt and uncertainty on his face. "If I remember correctly, the little wizard who bought the fire dragon materials we stole this time was named Charles. Don't tell me this fire dragon is Ciel." Several wizards fell into silence, and finally they all widened their eyes and looked at the leading wizard. "Boss, didn't you just say that you have to pick the weak ones, and Charles is that weak one, right? He's here to find us, boss. Teach him a lesson and let him know what it means to be extremely vicious." The leading wizard felt like he was screwed. "What the hell is this world? No, you're a fire dragon. You learned how to order with newspapers and even went to a Romanian dragon farm to buy fire dragon materials. What the hell are you going to do? You also left a message saying you're 11 years old. This is 11 years old." However, after feeling his worldview was about to go awry, the wizard raised his wand and calmed down from his panic. "So what about a fire dragon? Fire dragons are slaughtered every day in dragon farms in Romania. Adult fire dragons are tied with chains and tamed by wizards, let alone baby dragons like this. Compared with the alchemists and potion masters who have endless means and extremely wide connections, this is the softest persimmon." His eyes were cold. "Charles, huh? I admit that we stole your fire dragon materials, but how dare you, a young dragon, come to me without knowing your own limitations?" The wizard sneered, and a ferocious look appeared on his face. "I have worked in a dragon farm in Romania for many years and have personally slaughtered at least 10 adult dragons. My spells have pierced the scales of the most ferocious fire dragon, and my body is entangled with the fire dragon's wail. Do you think you are a hunter at the top of the food chain? No, no, no. If you meet me, it will be your death." He raised his wand and pointed it at Ciel's dragon body. "I'll let you know what cruelty is." Chapter 52. Just crush the bug to death. Deduce the dragon roar. Looking at Charles, the wizard showed a determined look. Waving the magic wand in his hand, spells with various special effects on dragons whistled out. Each spell was improved by wizards at a dragon farm in Romania specifically for dragons, targeting their weaknesses. For example, the eye disease spell is extremely effective against dragons. It is enough to cause a dragon to become temporarily blind, suffer severe pain in the eyes, and make it lose its mind, exposing more flaws. There is also a defense-breaking spell that weakens dragon scales. When hit, it can effectively reduce the magic resistance of dragon skin, paving the way for subsequent spells to take effect. Just looking at the rays of light flying into the air, the wizard next to him couldn't help but speak up to remind him, "Boss, it's crooked. The spell is crooked." The leading wizard was full of confidence and said calmly, "Why are you in such a hurry? Let the spell fly for a while. The fire dragon has inertia, understand? I have precisely calculated the speed of the magic spell and the speed of the char, so that the magic spell's hit rate on the fire dragon can be greatly increased. In less than 3 seconds, Ciel will be knocked down by my spell. 3, 2, 1, he counted the seconds calmly. Sure enough, the magic light was about to touch Charles. The wizard's lips curled up into a smile as he waited for the sight of Ciel falling from the sky, but the next moment, the smile on his face froze instantly. The Ukrainian iron-bellied fire dragon that swooped down rapidly from mid-air suddenly disappeared out of thin air. Instead, there was the figure of a little human wizard. The spells that were originally aimed at the huge body of the fire dragon naturally all missed. This incredible scene made the wizards below stunned. The fire dragon turned into little wizard again? Is this thing in front of me a dragon or a wizard? Exclamation mark. But in the brief moment when they were stunned, Charles had no intention of stopping. With a flick of the magic wand, the dustless land curse spread out. The overbearing invisible field enveloped the wizards below, instantly cutting off their ability to use magic power. Then there was a whisper from Charles, "Do you want to dance, too, eh?" Sharp explosion sounded. Charles directly used the short distance apparition to cross the distance and appeared in front of these wizards from mid-air. The wizards had no time to react at all before their wands were snatched away by vines that had come alive in the woods, and they themselves were hung up by the branches. All this happened in a flash, and by the time they reacted, the battle was already settled and they don't even know what exactly happened. Several horrified eyes fell on Charles. The methods of this 11-year-old wizard in front of him were simply too weird. The leading wizard was also complaining in his heart. Damn, he really thought that the little wizard Charles was a soft persimmon, so he decisively took action to rob Charles of the fire dragon materials. Who knew that he would provoke such a weird and unpredictable ruthless character? However, even though his wand was thrown off and he was hung up, the wizard regained his composure and looked at Charles. Mr. Charles, I'm in trouble this time. I thought you were an easy target, but I didn't expect you to hide a wall. How about this? I apologize to you. As for the 10 fire dragon materials, you can take 5 and you can still ask the Romanian dragon farm for compensation. In the end, you still make a profit. As for the remaining 5, we can take them away and divide them equally. How about we both take a step back on this matter today? Make a friend. Maybe you can use him in the future, he said quietly. After all, Mr. Ciel, you don't want blood on your hands, right? Several other wizards also said so. Yes, we have all admitted our mistakes, so let's forgive them when we can. You can't kill us anyway, can you? Don't be impulsive. You still have to go to Hogwarts to study. If Dumbledore finds out about the murder, you will be in trouble. One of the wizards even thought he had figured out the little wizard's weakness of being soft-handed and afraid of seeing blood, and said, have you ever killed anyone, Charles? Have you ever seen the color of blood? Bright red blood bursts out from the blood vessels, splashes high, and falls into the mouth. It tastes salty. Do you know how many ways there are to kill someone? Use a knife to pierce the soft neck and cut the blood vessels. Use a rope to break the neck bone, and it will make a snapping sound. It's better to use the killing curse. That's the quickest way. But if you're discovered, you'll be thrown into Azkaban. You know Azkaban, right? It's the place you go after killing someone. There are Dementors there. Tisk tisk, they will suck away all your happiness. The Dementor's kiss can eat up a person's soul. Charles, do you want to kill someone? Then do it, you dare. Several wizards were hung up, but as if they were sure that Charles would not really do it, they described death and killing wantonly, hoping to make Charles feel fear and disgust. It would be even better if Ciel lost his concentration after hearing these words and cancelled the transfiguration. The little wizard's mentality is unstable, so it is possible for them to turn defeat into victory. Just the next moment, click, a crisp sound was heard, and the shouting of the wizards came to an abrupt end. The one who was screaming the loudest just now had his neck broken cleanly and quickly by the branch activated by transfiguration. Charles even twisted the branch 2 more times to make sure he died completely in an instant. The grove was filled with deathly stillness and silence. The few wizards who were still alive looked at Charles with dull eyes. This is unreasonable. How could a little wizard kill someone? How dare he kill people? How could he have the heart to kill someone? He is still a child. Shouldn't he struggle and then decide to give them another chance? Why doesn't Ciel play by the rules? Exclamation mark. Then, screams of terror were heard. The wizards looked at Ciel with fear. You killed someone. Charles grinned and said faintly, didn't you just keep yelling for me to kill you? He was screaming really loudly, so I satisfied him. Why do you all have these expressions? Don't tell me you think I'm here to joke with you or play house. The boxes in the hands of the wizards were pierced by a vine and sent to Charles. Charles opened the box. The fire dragon materials inside were still relatively fresh, but some of the magic power had already begun to dissipate. In other words, the deduction points that can be obtained from it will be reduced. Charles' expression grew darker by the second. Do you know how much I'm looking forward to this batch of materials? Do you know how important this batch of materials is to me? Not only did you waste my time, you also caused damage to my materials and even saw my secrets. How naive are you to think that I won't kill you? How dare you talk to me about the proposal of equally dividing the fire dragon materials? Charles's gaze was cold as ice. He had made up his mind the moment he came here to chase after this batch of materials. These people must die. He waved his wand. The branches began to tighten. Click click. The crisp sound of necks being broken could be heard in the woods. Charles also deliberately put the leading wizard at the end. Don't you want to let me know what cruelty is? You are the last one to die, and you cannot die as easily as your accomplices. Is this cruel enough? The wizard's face was filled with extreme fear. You can't kill me. You can't kill me. The Ministry of Magic will investigate. There will be traces left. They can extract your memory. You can't hide the fact that you killed someone. Leave me here. I can help you. I can help you get rid of the investigation. I can be a scapegoat and let the Ministry of Magic come after me, as long as you let me live." Charles did not make any comment on this. The wand was waved, the wizard suffocated, his face turned purple, and after struggling for a while, he stopped moving. Then Charles sneered, "Trace, you were so naive until your death. You thought I would let you keep your body intact and your memories intact after you saw my trump card." Charles had an indifferent expression, and his mithril wand shone brightly. A ball of light flew out from the top of the magic wand, emitting a light as dazzling as the sun, eternal, blazing sun. When the ball of light flew towards the corpses, Charles once again transformed into a fire dragon, flapped his wings, and flew away quickly. A few seconds later, behind him, violent light and heat erupted everything in the center of the forest. The remaining corpses, and traces of battle, all disappeared under the eternal scorching sun. Ciel turned his head, his orange vertical pupils reflecting the bright light. Killing people? It doesn't seem like a big deal in the novels I read in my previous life. There were all kinds of disgusting reactions after killing someone, but I didn't feel anything calm and indifferent, like crushing a few fragile bugs. That's all. Charles' attention didn't even stay on this for too long before it shifted to the fire dragon materials at hand. If you don't eat it quickly, the magic power inside will dissipate more and the loss will be greater. After finding an open place to stop, Charles grabbed the suitcases one by one with his dragon claws, then opened his mouth and threw the suitcases into his mouth one by one. As the suitcase and the 10 fire dragon materials inside were transformed into deep blue, Charles' deduction points began to explode again. 900,000, 930,000, 970,000. Every moment, the deduction points soared by tens of thousands. In a short while, Charles' total number of deduction points exceeded 1 million and continued to soar. 1,005,000, 1,100,000, 1,200,000. In the end, the number settled at 1.36 million. Looking at this number, Charles' eyes showed eagerness. This was the first time he had so many deduction points. He could easily afford the 300,000 points required for the first deduction of the roar of power. Then, Charles hesitated. Should I start deducing the dragon language magic, roar of power now, or save the deduction points for later? At this moment, the scene of the battle just now emerged in his mind. Those wizards either had worked in dragon farms or were magical creature hunters, and they all had their own ways to deal with fire dragons. This is the case for even small characters like these. Powerful wizards will have even more methods to deal with fire dragons. When Charles chose to transform into a fire dragon, he had already taken this into consideration. At that time, he was thinking of deducing dragon language magic and transforming from a fire dragon into an ancient dragon to completely make up for the weakness. Now, his gaze became firm. Now that you have decided to take this path, there is no need to hesitate. If I had the dragon language magic just now, there would be no need to transform from a fire dragon back into human form. A roar of power is enough to shatter those wizards and their spells. As Ciel's trump card, the magic animagus should be as strong as possible. The next moment, Charles made a decision and said it in his mind. Deep blue, deduce the roar of power for me. Chapter 53 Ancient Dragon, Dragon Roar. Re-enter Alit. Following the whisper in Charles' mind, 300,000 deduction points were immediately deducted. Then, when Ciel was transforming into a fire dragon, the roar containing dragon language magic that had sounded in his mind began to roar again, and this time the dragon's roar became particularly clear. Power, power, power. The roars of giant dragons echoed dully in Charles' mind just like the wizard's spell deduced before. It seemed that in countless parallel worlds, there were countless shields who had mastered the magic animagus and were studying the roar of power day and night. The originally fragmented and somewhat vague heritage gradually became clear through such deduction. The roar of power, the dragon language magic that had long disappeared from the magic world, turned into Charles' instincts as the deduction points burned. If Dumbledore and other dragon language experts knew about this, it would probably cause a huge uproar. This is dragon language magic that only the ancient dragons of ancient times can master. The magic world has no corresponding research materials at all. Even if the dragon language experts obtained the same broken inheritance, it would probably take countless experts working together for many years to fully restore the roar of power. As for mastering this dragon language magic, among the many fire dragons in the magic world today, there is no one that can use dragon language magic, let alone wizards. Even for Dumbledore, being able to communicate in dragon language was an extremely remarkable achievement. As for using dragon language magic, this isn't possible, it's simply a miracle. However, at this moment, Such a miracle happened to Charles with the help of Deep Blue. A mechanical reminder sounded in Charles' mind. The first deduction of the roar of power has been completed, and the broken parts of the inheritance of the roar of power have been supplemented. The host will be able to perfectly use roar of power while in the dragon form of the magical animagus. Charles took a deep breath. Everything about the roar of power was flowing in his blood like an instinct. He began to understand why dragon language, or dragon roar, was so important to dragons. Just like wizards have to use wands to easily cast spells and unleash powerful spells, dragon roar. This is the combination of dragon's magic wand, magic spell and casting posture. Dragons that cannot roar, such as the fire dragons in the magic world today, are duds among dragons, deformed creatures without the ability to cast spells. It can even be said that they are not much different from wild beasts. Only dragons that can master the dragon roar can be considered true ancient dragons, a race that can be revered and feared by wizards, rather than the livestock that are now raised in dragon farms and slaughtered. At the same time, due to the powerful magic and unique talents that dragons are endowed with, the magic cast by dragon roars, even the most basic roar of power, is far more powerful than the imagination of ordinary wizards. And in the process of mastering more dragon language magic and casting dragon roars, the dragon's body will also resonate with the magic power. The ancient dragon's huge body, vast power, and strong anti-magic ability are all in a different dimension from today's fire dragon. They were acquired in the process of performing dragon roars over many years. Dragon roar. This is not only the ancient dragon's weapon, but also the ancient dragon's way of training, in the form of a fire dragon. Charles had a burning look in his eyes. Let me see the power of dragon language magic. The next moment, Charles activated the roar of power. A vast and low roar burst out from the fire dragon's throat, like rumbling thunder. Immediately afterwards, powerful magic power burst out, forming a powerful shock wave that spread forward. Suddenly, a rumbling sound echoed in the forest. In a large fan-shaped area in front of Charles, the trees looked like they had encountered a terrible typhoon. Even the big trees that several people could hug were directly broken by the shock wave, and the wood chips flew all over the sky. The ground looked as if it had been plowed, uncovering the mud and rocks underneath. Everything within dozens of meters ahead was completely destroyed by this roar of power. Charles' eyes showed shock. It is worthy of being the dragon language magic of the ancient dragon. Even the most basic roar of power is terrifying in its power. If I had mastered the roar of power when facing those wizards before, why would I need to restore my human form to avoid a spell? With the roar of power, everything below will be shattered to pieces. At this time, in addition to marveling at the power of the roar of strength, Charles' bones and muscles all over his body also began to crackle. After this dragon roar, he could clearly feel that the fire dragon's body began to become stronger in all aspects. After this dragon roar, the bones and muscles have become tougher, the membranes covering the wings have become thicker, and even the scales and skin on the body can resist more powerful spells than before. Ciel gasped. Is this the path of the ancient dragon? It's unreasonable. It's really unreasonable. The dragon roar is powerful, and it can also help the dragon's body become stronger. No wonder the few records about ancient dragons I have seen all mention that ancient dragons are unrivaled. How can ordinary wizards fight such a scoundrel? Charles was quite satisfied with this. It's worth all the effort. The gain is really worth it. Give yourself some more time. Deduce a few more dragon roars, roar a few more times, and in the magical animagus form, Ciel feels that he can compete with Dumbledore and Voldemort. Meanwhile, in faraway Romania amid the towering mountains, a majestic castle lies hidden within ancient magic. Under the ancient castle, there was a surging sea of blood, with countless dragon skeletons floating in it. There was a sea of dragon blood here. In the sea of dragon blood, a huge coffin was floating up and down, as if it had been here for a long time. It was not until Charles exerted his power in England that the huge coffin shook violently, and an excited voice came out of it. Dragon roar. I felt a dragon roar. It's a faint feeling, but there's no doubt about it. This is definitely a dragon's roar, a roar of dragon language magic power. Ancient dragons actually appear in this era. Then, a figure came to the sea of dragon blood and knelt humbly on one knee in front of the coffin. Master, you summoned me. A deep voice came from the coffin. An ancient dragon was born in Britain. Go there and bring this ancient dragon back to me. Try to capture it alive. If all else fails, bring back fresh corpses and souls. The servant couldn't help but look up and asked in a low voice, Master, bring back an ancient dragon. The voice from the coffin sounded again. Don't worry, There is no one in this era who knows ancient dragons better than me, dragon. Language magic is extremely difficult. It takes a long time for a newly born ancient dragon to gradually master a new dragon language magic. It is normal to take several years, more than 10 years, or even decades to master a new dragon language magic. You will have no problem dealing with an ancient dragon that can only roar with power. The servant heaved a sigh of relief when he heard this. He pondered in his mind, I'm going to England now to search for traces of the ancient dragon. I'm sure I'll find it in a year or two at most. At that time, I was only facing a newly born ancient dragon. According to my master, it would not be my opponent. Then, won't it mean that I will accomplish a feat that no one in this era can match, and kill the ancient dragon alone? Thinking of this, the worry in the servant's eyes disappeared, replaced by excitement in an instant. He turned into a group of vampire bats and flew out of the dragon blood sea. Inside the leaky cauldron, Charles' figure returned to the room again. At this moment, he could not hide the tiredness on his face. After all, he first searched non-stop for the wizards who stole the fire dragon's materials, then fought another battle, and released the eternal blazing sun curse to clean up the traces. Then, in the magical animagus form, he released another roar of power. This series of actions took a huge toll on him. Charles lay on the soft bed and closed his eyes. He needed some sleep to restore his energy. Almost a moment he lay down on the bed, Charles fell asleep. An unknown amount of time had passed, but when Charles opened his eyes, the scene before him was no longer the leaky cauldron, but a rocky beach with a sea that looked like dark oil. Beyond the beach stood a city that was ancient, beautiful, and strange. Low and hoarse whispers came from the temple in the city. When Charles saw this chilling scene, he was stunned at first, and then he was overjoyed. This sea, this beach, this city, this is not a King buffet. Bah, isn't this the Arlia that I've been longing for? Here I am again. At this time, Charles looked forward. A huge figure with countless wriggling tentacles appeared in front of him again. This body, which can no longer be called a human, still has the face of Doc. At this moment, he looked at Charles, and the panic on his face had disappeared, replaced by the confidence that he was in control of everything. Charles, my friend, we meet again, do you see my beautiful body? Charles stared at Dark steadily, with only one thought in his mind. So many tentacles, so many points. His eyes gradually became hot. I want to eat it so much. Chapter 54. I've learned my lesson this time, and I'll deduce it again. Noticing Charles' burning gaze, Dark showed a confident look on his face. If I'm not mistaken, you must want to bite me right now, just like last time, directly annihilate a part of my existence. I have to admit, Ciel, you really do possess a talent beyond imagination. Even if you haven't sublimated yet, you are still so special. But this time, it's different from last time. As these words were spoken, the tentacles on Dark's body suddenly surged forward like a tide, wrapping around Charles tightly. Even Charles' mouth was sealed by a tentacle like a rope. Dark's real body slowly came to the air with the support of tentacles, overlooking the bound Charles. It is surprise. I fled in front of you last time, so why am I so powerful now that I can easily subdue you here? Are you curious? More and more fanaticism appeared on Doc's face. This is the world after sublimation. The human body has its limits, and so does the magic of wizards. How strong can one be? The best one can be is Dumbledore, but the old ones have no limits. After the sublimation, at the beginning, all my strength was put into the sublimation, and I was very weak, so I was easily defeated by you last time. But in Arlia, I can grow and become stronger just by breathing. Perhaps you have some special talents, but when it comes to the speed of becoming stronger, you will never be able to surpass me. The gap between us will only get bigger and bigger. Ciel, you can't fight me. He looked down at Ciel, his tentacles swaying. You worked so hard to learn spells, but I surpassed you in the blink of an eye. Seeing me gradually approaching the realm of greatness and terror, do you feel hopeless? Come on, Ciel, stop being stubborn and embrace the glorious evolution. Let us start the era of the return of the ancients. Then, Doc loosened the tentacles' hold on Charles' mouth a little. Well, Charles, have you figured it out? At this moment, Charles was biting his lips tightly, as if he was trying to suppress some impulse. The greed and passion in his eyes almost overflowed, as Dark asked. Ciel took a deep breath. I figured it out, too. Be honest, after I left Arlia last time, I have been regretting it almost every day and night, reflecting on the wrong decision I made. I Have prayed countless times that God would give me a chance to make amends. Now, this opportunity has finally come, and I will never make the same mistake again. Hearing Charles' words, Doc's face growing on the ball of flesh showed a look of relief. Yes, that's right. I knew it, my friend. You will regret missing out on such a magnificent view. Come join me in the glorious evolution. But at this moment, Charles bit down on the tentacle dancing in front of him. This action made Doc stun for a moment, and he had an ominous premonition. Wait, what are you doing? What do you want to do? Don't you regret it? Ciel muttered. Yeah, I've been regretting it before. I regretted that I was too eager to gnaw on your tentacles. I scared you away before I could even eat a few tentacles. I learned my lesson this time. I was trying hard to resist the urge to take a bite until so many tentacles showed up. Sure enough, self-discipline is rewarded after all. Now, it's finally time for me to reap the harvest. Charles bit off a piece of the tentacle. Deep blue immediately converted it into a large number of deduction points for Doc. It was like a part of himself disappeared into thin air. But after sublimation, he could be said to be immortal and indestructible, and no spell could destroy him. Such a strange situation made Doc look shocked and angry. I'm going to gag you, damn it, Ciel. I will take you to the temple and let you witness the greatness of the ancients. I will force you to start your ascension. The tentacles suddenly exerted force, as if trying to bind Charles again, but Charles grinned. Gag my mouth. That's really something I'm looking forward to. The next moment, in the face of Dark's horror, Charles performed the animagus transfiguration spell. His body suddenly swelled, and the dragon body stretched out on the beach of Arliet, and the tentacles that Doc had bound him were also broken free. Immediately afterwards, Charles opened his mouth and roared at Dark, a roar of power. A powerful shock wave spread out, and Dark, who was almost hit face to face by the roar of power, shattered on the beach. The tentacles broke one by one, and green slime dripped from the sky like rain. Doc's shattered face was full of panic. He grew two tiny tentacles and quickly disappeared in front of Charles. Ciel's eyes showed anticipation, and he grinned. Doc, my friend, you will grow up, right? I remember clearly what you just told me. In this Arliet, you can become stronger even by breathing, so you'll be this big again soon. I will come back. I will definitely find a way to get back here, Dake. I will come to see you again. With a shout of joy, Charles opened his bloody mouth and swallowed the dark tentacles scattered on the beach. To Charles, these disgusting, squirming things were simply delicacies. With every tentacle, his deduction points soared. 100,000, 200,000, 300,000. Just the tentacles that Doc had scattered on the beach provided Charles with over 1,000,000 deduction points. Then, without stopping for a moment, Charles turned his head to nibble on the black reefs on the beach, and opened his mouth to swallow the seawater that was like black oil. In the outside world, points can only be obtained by consuming a large amount of precious materials, but in Arliet, they can be found everywhere. With every sip, the deduction points soar, but Charles was still not satisfied with his eating speed. He felt a little anxious. Not enough, not fast enough. The dining time at the buffet is limited. I was kicked out not long after last time. This time it might be even faster. I don't know when I can enter Arliet again, so I must get what I paid for this time. With this in mind, Charles made a decision. The initial form of the roar of power is to erupt with a destructive shock wave. Then, can it be reversed and turned into reverse breathing, sucking everything in front into the mouth? If that's the case, using Dragon Roar to devour these reefs and seawater will definitely be much more efficient than it is now. I'll have to perform the roar of power a second time sooner or later anyway, so why not do it here? The next moment, Charles said in his mind, Deep Blue, second deduction of the roar of power. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 55, Destruction Torrent. Tens of millions of points. As Charles growled the words of the second deduction in his mind, A full 1.5 million deduction points were deducted in an instant. The deduction points previously obtained were cut in half in an instant, but what followed was a huge amount of insights into dragon roars and dragon language magic that poured into Charles' dragon body and turned into the body's instinct. The roar of power is the basis of all dragon language magic and is also the first roar that all ancient dragons learn, but this does not mean that its power is shallow. Otherwise, how could it accommodate the subsequent dragon language magic and even become the symbol of dragon language magic? The exploration of the roar of power is the only way for the ancient dragons to achieve improvement, and this time is often very long even with the guidance of blood inheritance. The time it takes for an ancient dragon to learn the next roar from the roar of power is often measured in years, but now, for Charles, who possessed the deep blue, this process was shortened to just a moment. The roar of power gave birth to new changes. After a moment, a deep blue reminder sounded in Charles' mind. The second deduction of the roar of power is completed, according to the direction requested by the host. The result of this deduction is the reversal of the roar of power. The roar of power is a breath of astonishing power sent forward, with a strong impact force, and the new result is that it generates a reverse breath with amazing suction force in front, which draws everything in front towards the host. The combination of exhalation and reverse breathing will tear apart everything within the coverage area like a torrent. Compared with simple exhalation and reverse breathing, the killing effect is greatly improved. This is the dragon language magic obtained by the second deduction of the roar of power, the torrent of destruction. Along with a prompt, two new dragon roars emerged in Charles' mind as if instinctively. Charles couldn't help but roar towards the sky. The rumbling roar was like rolling thunder, shattering everything in its path. Compared to before the second deduction, the power and range of this roar of power have obviously increased exponentially. In addition, after this roar of power, Charles let out a completely different dragon roar. At this moment, everything in front seemed to be driven by the rolling airflow. The seawater and scattered rocks all surged towards Charles and sank into his mouth. It was as if Charles' mouth was a black hole, attracting everything in front of it. With this one reverse breath alone, the efficiency of swallowing seawater and reefs was much higher than before. A full 200,000 deduction points were born from this reverse breath. But Charles' actions were not over yet. Just as Ciel suggested, neither the breath of the roar of power nor the reverse breath after the reversal can be considered the true result of the secondary deduction. The combination of the two is the new dragon language magic. Ciel's gaze fell on the endless black beach in front of him. The roar of power destroyed some black reefs growing on the beach, and the reverse breath also sucked in some scattered reefs, but there seems to be no impact on the beaches or the seabed itself. It seemed more solid there. The black, more intense Ciel licked his lips, his eyes glowing with passion. This probably means that more deduction points can be provided there. So, Charles spread his wings and flew into the air, his blazing gaze cast towards the beach below. Then he opened his mouth and uttered two consecutive dragon roars, which contained the roar of power and its reversal. And this is exactly the dragon language magic that he deduced for the second time, the torrent of destruction. This two-syllable dragon roar sounded, and a violent shock wave whizzed out towards the front. At the same time, a turbulent counter-breath was generated from afar and gathered in the direction of Charles. The area covered by the destructive torrent was like being in a turbulent whirlpool, being torn apart by two opposing forces. The dark, oil-like, viscous seawater was torn into tiny water droplets all over the sky. The reefs scattered on the seabed were torn into pieces into black stone powder all over the sky. Even the seabed itself, if you look closely, you can see that the rich black color on the surface is being shaken, torn and peeled off by the torrent of destruction. And even blacker powder is floating in the area. As long as the destructive torrent lasted, the height of the beaches within its coverage seemed to be one level lower than those nearby, and in this area, it was as if a thick fog had risen. You couldn't see your hand in front of you. It was pitch black, and the space was filled with black water droplets and black stone powder. Charles looked at this scene with increasing excitement. It simply tore everything in the area into powder and lowered the seabed by several centimeters. Even if there was a fire dragon in here, its flesh, blood and scales would be torn apart, revealing its pale skeleton. This power has surpassed the lethal spell used in his human form, the eternal blazing sun curse. It is indeed the dragon language magic which is famous for its power. Then, Charles opened his mouth and roared. The surging counter-breath appeared again, sucking the endless tons of fine water droplets and stone powder in front of him into Charles' mouth. At this moment, the surging black was like a long dragon spanning 100 meters, rushing towards Charles from a distance. Charles' ancient dragon body seemed extremely small in front of the black, as if it would be submerged at any time. But the endless black color, after entering Charles' mouth, seemed to disappear into another space. Deep Blue tirelessly transforms deduction points every moment. The deduction points soared by tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands. And the speed was even faster than when he swallowed Dark's tentacles before. In a moment, when the black color created by the torrent of destruction was swallowed up by Charles, the deduction points that he had consumed greatly due to the second deduction of the roar of power not only completely made up for the loss, but even soared again by nearly 3 million. The total number of deduction points, 5.5 million. Click, click. The sound of scales and bones rubbing against each other came from Charles' dragon body. The continuous bursts of dragon language magic made his dragon body continuously strengthen compared to when he had just mastered the magic animagus. The scales on Ciel's body appeared much darker, and his anti-magic effect had increased by at least 30%. His body also grew larger, from 5 meters to nearly 7 meters in height. While inheriting the huge size of the Ukrainian Iron Belly fire dragon, his body has become more streamlined. His strength has become more powerful, and his speed and agility have also been greatly improved. It can be said that even without counting the improvement in dragon language magic, the enhancement of the dragon body alone would allow Charles to completely crush himself when he just turned into a fire dragon. This is the special power of the ancient dragon who masters dragon language magic. But at this time, Charles had no time to pay attention to the changes in his dragon body. There was anxiety in his eyes. The last time he was in Arlet, he thought he could keep eating here. But after Dark disappeared, he was kicked out of Arlet not long after. After that, Charles really regretted that he couldn't eat a few more bites this time. Charles didn't want to repeat his previous regrets. Time is running out. He must eat more. Looking at the endless speech, Charles circled in the air and fired another torrent of destruction at another area when he once again devoured all the black powder after the destructive torrent. Charles's deduction points broke through 8 digits for the first time. The total number of deduction points exceeded 10 million. Chapter 56 Storm Calls. It turns out I'm not crazy enough? Exclamation mark. But at this moment, Charles looked into the distance. Because he was flying in the air, and with the dragon's excellent eyesight, his field of vision was expanded dozens of times compared to the first time he came to Arlet. He could already see that the edge of the ancient city of Arlet in the distance seemed to be beginning to become illusory. The illusion was gradually spreading towards the beach where he was. This was undoubtedly a signal to Charles. The buffet limit time is almost up. It's time to collect the food. The anxiety in Charles' eyes became even more intense. Wait a little longer. Wait a little longer. I can still eat. I can still eat. Let me eat some more. 10 million points is already a huge number, but there are countless places where Ciel needs to use deduction points. Now deducing dragon language magic in the ancient dragon form is a bottomless pit, which can easily cost millions. This is only Ciel's first magical animagus. When he obtains the second and third animagus in the future, the consumption will definitely not be less. Moreover, the magic animagus itself can be deduced 4 or 5 times upwards. This is an astronomical expenditure. Ciel also has a bunch of very useful wizard spells that don't have any points to deduce. The more deduction points you have, the more they feel like they are not enough for Charles. Every minute and every second of the time in Arlet is worth cherishing. If I don't eat enough this time, who knows when I can come to Arlet next time? What if Dick's friend also learns his lesson and no longer drags himself into this? What should I do then? What if Arlet also blocks me directly? Therefore, without even a moment's hesitation, Charles decided to make a big move in this last moment. His orange dragon eyes were filled with madness. Deep blue, based on the destructive torrent, move it in a direction with a larger range and greater power. 3 deductions. At this moment, the total number of deduction points that had previously soared to 10 million fell directly to the bottom like a roller coaster. But what followed was a deafening dragon roar that seemed to come from above the sky, among the dark clouds, and under the raging storm. In Charles' dragon eyes, he seemed to see an ancient dragon bathed in storms and lightning, spreading its wings that covered the sky, circling and dancing, and making a dragon roar that sounded like a natural disaster. Then came the storm that swept across the sea, which was enough to create huge waves hundreds or thousands of meters high, like a world-destroying disaster. In Charles' mind, he understood the meaning of the dragon's raw power: wind, calling, destruction. The vast power is like a natural disaster. Compared with this dragon language magic, the torrent of destruction just now was actually a small scene. The next moment, a deep blue mechanical prompt sounded in Charles' mind. According to the host's request, 3 deductions of destructive power, range and direction were carried out on the destructive torrent. The host has obtained the dragon language magic of the ancient dragon sky faction. Storm Call. Use. The ancient dragons roar to shake the natural magic power and create the most violent storm over a large area. A mature ancient dragon casting storm call is enough to destroy a small city, even though he had personally experienced the power of dragon language magic. At this moment, Charles still couldn't help but be shocked by the power of the ancient dragon. After 3 deductions, he obtained magic capable of destroying a city. What about the 4th and 5th deductions? This terrifying race has only a few fragments of records in wizard books in the so-called ancient times by wizards. The ancient dragon race had already declined. It is said that the surviving ancient dragons are not worth mentioning at all compared with the powerful creatures among the ancient dragon race. Even so, the few times wizards faced ancient dragons, what they left behind were unshakable and invincible records of fear. So, how did the ancient dragon race decline? Such a question arose in Charles' mind, but he suppressed it in an instant. This is not something he can think about now, and besides, now is not the time to think about it. I spent tens of millions of deduction points just to get my money back many times over. At this moment, the illusion in the distance is spreading continuously, and the speed is getting faster and faster. Charles didn't dare to delay for a moment. He spread his wings and circled in the air from his mouth. The vast and low dragon roars sounded continuously. If there is something here that knows dragon language magic, it would be able to understand the meaning of the dragon roar coming from Charles' mouth. Guangfeng, listen to my orders, ancient dragon sky dragon language magic, storm call. When the complete storm summoning dragon roar came out of Charles' mouth, the rumbling sound of thunder exploded above the sky. What followed was a storm area covering an area of 1 mile in radius. Strong winds comparable to the most extreme in human record howled through the area. The heavy black reefs, like rags, were blown into the sky by the storm. The black seawater, as viscous as oil, gradually surged into huge waves tens of meters high in the area. One wave after another came, one higher than the other, like a group of ferocious monster hands trying to grab Charles from the sky and bring him down. Even the seabed in the shallows was blown up into large pieces of gravel and debris by the strong wind within a mile radius. The black color was thick, filled with black water droplets and gravel swirling and flying at high speed. If anyone enters this area, their bones will be ground into pieces in an instant. Even a fire dragon would be subjected to torture comparable to lynching in this vast area. It can be said that if it were in reality, this area would be a death zone. At this moment, Charles was circling over this forbidden zone of death. Dragon roars resounded. Back breath, in the forbidden zone of death. Long black dragons were attracted by Charles's dragon roar and flew towards his direction. They entered Charles' mouth and turned into points in the deep blue system that began to rise sharply again. 1 million, 2 million, 5 million, 10 million, 20 million, 30 million. When the points soared to 35 million, the illusion in the distance came in an instant. Instantly, Charles let out a wail. Do not want. I don't want to leave. Why don't you let me stay here? Your beach has been rotten and smelly for too long without anyone taking care of it. I can help you clean the beach and maintain hygiene, as long as you provide food and accommodation, that's all. If that doesn't work, can you let me pack up a beach? But before he could finish his words, the image of Arlia in his dream disappeared from Charles' sight. What appeared before him was the familiar room of the leaky cauldron. Charles jumped up from the bed, his face full of grief. No, my Arlia, how can I live without you? No matter how beautiful the golden sun is, it cannot compare to the green sun of Arlia. No matter how beautiful the blue water is, it cannot compare to the viscous black water of Arlia. The beach at Arlia is the most beautiful beach I have ever seen. After leaving Arlia, everything seems so bleak. Please give me a chance to go again. Charles lamented for a long time, but had to accept the fact that he had to leave Arlia temporarily. Things have calmed to this point, and there is no way to undo it by lamenting. People have to be strong. Charles' eyes showed determination. Why can I only wait for Dakla to let me in? Isn't this choking me? How can the core technology to enter Arlia be in Duck's hands? I must break this. He began to concentrate his thoughts, recalling the 2 times he had entered the dream world of Arlia. The first time was when he escaped from Dark's basement. He had not eaten or drunk for a long time, and he released the eternal blazing sun curse to increase the burden. He fell into coma as soon as he escaped. The second time was when I was continuously chasing the group of wizards who stole the materials for the fire dragon. I consumed a lot of physical strength, and after another eternal blazing sun curse ended, I felt very tired and wanted to rest. Charles' eyes gradually brightened. Both times it happened when I was in a bad mental state. When I was in good condition, even if I fell asleep, Dake didn't pull me in. Could it be that entering the dream world of Arlia has something to do with my mental state? The worse my condition is, the easier it will be for Dick to pull me into Arlia. This shows that the key to entering Arlia is spiritual. When thinking of this, Charles looked thoughtful. But even if I am unconscious, I cannot enter Arlia on my own. I still need Deckra to help me get in. Why is that? Why can Dick stay in Lally forever? Could it be that our mental states are different? In an instant, Charles seemed to have grasped the key from the first time he met Dark. He felt that there was a creepy madness in Dark. Doc also kept saying that he could hear the ancients whispering in his ears until he took the sublimation potion. When Charles escaped from the basement, Doc seemed to be even more crazy, screaming that he succeeded and said that he witnessed those great beings again. Recalling this, Charles suddenly understood. I understand. It turns out it's because I'm not crazy enough. If I could become as crazy as Dick was at the end, maybe I could freely enter Arlia, or a place similar to Arlia. The corners of Charles' mouth slowly curled up. It is not possible for a normal person to become as insane as Doc, even if he is mentally okay. Or is he a normal person? He has dark blue. Isn't it just going to be more crazy? With deep blue here, everything is possible. Ciel kept searching for knowledge related to changing the brain and spirit, and finally a name emerged in his mind: alchemist. In the original book, this thing can control one's brain and mind and focus on what one wants to think about. Even if they are subject to legitimacy, they can be controlled to show specific things to the other party, or even make up false information. So, what if I use deep blue to master alchemist to the point where I can freely control it and allow those crazy scenes that Ark mentioned to appear in my mind? I'm so crazy, how can Arlia not let me in? Thinking of this, the curve of Charles' mouth grew wider and wider, because in his upcoming first year at Hogwarts, the two most powerful legitimacy masters in the wizarding world will gather in the castle: the Dark Lord, the White Lord. No one is stronger than them when it comes to legitimacy. One can imagine their attainments in spiritual magic at the same time. Hogwarts also has a master of brain occlusion. Snape's legitimacy was able to deceive Voldemort, and his occlumency was the strongest in the wizarding world from them. Ciel should be able to gather a lot of material for legitimacy and occlumency by then. Quadruple, quintuple, or even sextuple occlumency should be possible. Charles just doesn't believe that he can't become as crazy as Dake! Exclamation mark. Dake, we will meet again. We will definitely meet again. You, and the ancients you believe in, will never be able to shut me out. You can't get rid of me. Chapter 57, The Surge in Strength, the Hand of Glory, the Sun Without Light. After taking a deep breath, Charles slowly calmed down the desire in his heart that was eager to enter Arlia again. After all, although Arlia seemed to him to be a buffet restaurant with unlimited supplies, the deduction points provided by the seawater and reefs in Arlia alone showed how ancient and powerful the magic of this place was. Dark had only just ascended, but if Ciel didn't have the ancient dragon form of the magic animagus, it would probably be difficult to deal with him. One should be cautious when trying to drive oneself insane by performing occlumency to gain access to Arlia. What's more, the commotion caused by Charles this time was quite big. If he forced his way into Arlia again in a short period of time, it might lead to something serious being uncovered, which would be disastrous. Therefore, Charles suppressed the desire in his heart and instead focused his attention on the gains from being pulled into Arlia. This time, Charles reaped a huge reward in Arlia. The ancient dragon form gains 2 new dragon language magics, Destruction Torrent and Storm Call, whose range and power surpass the eternal blazing sun cast in human form. And after the final storm-calling dragon roar, Charles' dragon body was further tempered in the howling wind. The anti-magic effect, strength, speed, and size have all been comprehensively improved. If Charles were to transform into an ancient dragon now, he would not look like a young dragon, but rather a young adult. The ancient majesty it exudes is much stronger than that of a fire dragon. The two are not on the same level at all. Relying solely on this dragon body, more than 99% of the wizards and magical creatures in the magical world can only feel despair in front of Ciel. Not only that, at this moment, Charles was quietly feeling his body. With a look of surprise and shock in his eyes, he tried to clench his fists. A powerful force arises naturally in the flesh and blood. He threw a punch casually, and a crisp sound like a whip hitting the air was even heard in the room. Although Charles participated in various sports competitions when he was in the Muggle world and his physique was much stronger than other children of the same age, he was definitely not as strong as this. This is simply abnormal. Charles' face showed understanding. A wizard's human form and animagus form are not completely separate. but influence each other. Peter Pettigrew is a prime example of this. He is a coward by nature, hence his animagus transformation is a rat. After that, he hid his identity for more than 10 years and turned into a rat to avoid being hunted down. When he finally regained his human form, he still retained a lot of rat behavioral characteristics. On ordinary animagus, this effect is not noticeable. At least it will take a long time for the change to be noticeable, but on the magic animagus that I have practiced, this effect is much greater. The powerful magic of the ancient dragon form has undoubtedly also had a promoting effect on my human form. My physical strength has increased significantly as a result, reaching an almost inhuman level. Charles sensed the magic power in his body again, and his face became even happier compared to before. The strength of his magic power has also undergone a nearly qualitative improvement, as if he had undergone a permanent magical transformation, far exceeding that of most adult wizards. This has greatly increased the combat effectiveness of the char form. For example, the strength of transfiguration is much stronger than before. Previously, Charles had mastered the art of transfiguration, but due to limitations on his magical power, he was unable to perform some transformations. Now, these are not a problem. The most significant change may be reflected in the Eternal Blazing Sun Curse. When the Eternal Blazing Sun Curse was first deduced, one cast of the Eternal Blazing Sun Curse could cause a huge burden on Charles, to the point of causing him to become exhausted and pass out. Not long ago, Charles cast the Eternal Blazing Sun spell to eliminate all traces. Although he was not exhausted to the point of passing out, he was also very tired. But now, thanks to the feedback from the ancient dragon form, Charles didn't dare to say that he could use the Eternal Blazing Sun spell as a knockout, but at least it wouldn't be difficult to cast 7 or 8 compared to before. The strength of this human form has improved by more than a little bit. Exclamation mark. A look of relief appeared in Charles' eyes. Transfiguration is indeed a field that powerful wizards like Dumbledore and Voldemort delve into in depth. The investment in animagus transfiguration has paid off handsomely. This is only my first magical animagus transformation. Once I gather the blood of 2 other powerful magical animals, the feedback from the 3 transformations may be even stronger. Then, by performing transfiguration 4, 5, or even more times, the magical animagus may be able to transform all mythical creatures. Then, Charles's eyes fell on the 35 million deduction points. After hesitating for a moment, he decided to use some of his points to continue improving his wizard form's strength. Most of his previous investment in wizard form was on control and escape, because at that time magic power was a fatal flaw. Even if one deduced more powerful combat spells, they were too heavy a burden to cast, and did not bring much improvement to one's strength. But now, since magic power is no longer a constraint, I can improve it. The ancient dragon form is a trump card, and Charles will not use it unless it is absolutely necessary. After all, the appearance of an ancient dragon in this era is really shocking, and I don't know how many hidden wizards might be blown away. Not to mention that Ciel's ancient dragon form was transformed through animagus, which would really blow up the world if it were made public. Countless people would covet this kind of power. Wizards have so many ways to prolong their lives. God knows if there is anyone among those who can compare with Dumbledore and Voldemort. Who can explain the existence of a strange place like Arliet? Therefore, before he grows to the point where he can protect himself against 2 or 3 Dumbledores, Ciel does not intend to reveal his ancient dragon form. It is still necessary for him to improve his wizard form strength. After thinking for a moment, Charles made a decision. His eyes fell on the luminescent spell and its derivation spell that had accompanied him the longest, having already deduced to the point of the Eternal Blazing Sun Curse. This series of spells naturally cannot be abandoned in terms of power. The Eternal Blazing Sun Curse is already extremely strong, only slightly weaker than the dragon roar of the ancient dragon form, but it is enough to deal with 99% of opponents. However, even with the control of the Pure Land Curse, the Eternal Blazing Sun Curse is too conspicuous and its activation speed is a bit slow, which is still a flaw. Charles had also thought about making the Eternal Blazing Sun spell quieter, preferably so that the enemy couldn't detect it, but the deduction points given by Deep Blue in this direction reached millions, which was not a number that could be ignored even for Charles today. The reason given by Deep Blue is that the Eternal Blazing Sun spell radiates light, and he'd like the sun want to make the sun less dazzling. This is too difficult, so naturally more deduction points need to be added. But before that, Ciel obtained a dark magic item from Borgin and Burke's in Nocturne Alley, which happened to have this property. Using it as material might significantly reduce the points needed to deduce in this direction. Then, Charles rummaged around and took out a dry palm. This palm is called the Hand of Glory. Its property is that the light source lit on it is only visible to the person holding it, and can illuminate most magical mists. You have to know that those magic mists have obscuring magic power, but they can still be penetrated by the Hand of Glory. This shows that the light source lit by the Hand of Glory also has a certain degree of magic breaking effect, whether it is light that is visible only to oneself or the magic breaking effect. These are the characteristics that Ciel needs. If the light of the eternal blazing sun is only visible to Charles and no one else can see it, then even if the enemy is struck by the eternal blazing sun, they will probably not be able to react. In addition to the eternal blazing sun, the laser spell can also inherit this characteristic. The laser that can cut through everything is only visible to Charles. This is the real invisible divine edge. Coupled with the magic breaking properties, the lethality will skyrocket. Then, even in wizard form, Charles can easily break through the defense and kill some magical animals with strong anti-magic ability. After a moment, Ciel waved his wand. A firefly-like light fell towards the Hand of Glory and landed on its fingers. The strange thing is that once this light fell into the Hand of Glory, it disappeared without a trace. This light can only be seen when Charles holds the Hand of Glory. Just as he was experiencing this phenomenon personally, a deep blue reminder sounded in Charles' mind. The host has obtained high-level materials that can be used to deduce the luminescent spell. The points for subsequent deductions of the luminescent spell have decreased, according to the direction previously proposed by the host. Perform the luminescent spell 4 times, add the feature of only being visible to me, and the feature of breaking magic. This requires 1,000,000 points. Do you want to deduce? Ciel's eyes lit up when he heard the prompt. 1,000,000 deduction points is a lot less than the several million points required for previous inquiries. In exchange, the concealment and lethality of the eternal blazing sun spell are greatly enhanced, which is still a good deal in Charles' opinion. Therefore, Charles decisively chose to agree. Deduction. After a moment, Deep Blue had completely analyzed the magical knowledge contained in the Hand of Glory, and he began to try to integrate it into the eternal blazing sun curse. Through repeated deductions, want to make the sun invisible and only visible to me? Such a proposition would be considered a madman's idea, even to countless whimsical wizards, but the miracle was accomplished in Charles' mind. The eternal blazing sun spell was as dazzling as the sun. While retaining its blazing light and heat, its light was gradually dimming until it disappeared into thin air. A deep blue reminder sounded immediately. 4 deductions of the luminescent spell have been completed. The host has obtained an improved version of the fluorescent spell, the light that breaks invisibility. The host has obtained an improved version of the laser spell, the edge of night. The host has obtained an improved version of the eternal blazing sun curse, the lightless sun. Chapter 58. 4 deductions, all-weather protection, dragon armor curse. A series of reminders emerged in Charles' mind. Then, when he saw this series of derivative spells of the fluorescent spell, even though he had seen the violent ancient dragon magic, Charles couldn't help but smile. Let's first talk about the improved version of the luminescent charm and the flash charm, the light of invisibility. This combines the characteristics of the Hand of Glory to dispel the fog. Once cast, the disillusionment spell, invisibility cloak, and even various hidden magic traps within the range will be revealed. If you are exploring some ruins full of magic traps, or encounter some enemies with invisibility abilities, the light of invisibility can be very useful. As for the improved version of the laser spell, Night Blade, it has directly made a huge improvement in lethality and concealment. Charles waved his wand casually. An array of light suddenly burst out from the tip of the mithril wand, making it look like the lightsaber of the Jedi Knight in the movie of the previous life. This is exactly the form of the Night's Edge spell, but this blade of light can only be seen by Ciel, who holds it to others. The tip of Charles' wand was empty and there was nothing unusual. Only when the blade of light comes close to them and cuts them off, perhaps they can feel its terrifying edge. In addition, the Night's Edge curse also has some magic-breaking properties, which makes it very effective in cutting off protective spells and resistant skin when the Night Blade is wielded. Dragon scales and dragon skin can be broken. Charles was quite satisfied with this. It has to be said that the battle spell deduced by Deep Blue is extremely consistent with Charles' own characteristics. He has the feedback from the ancient dragon form, and even in wizard form, his physical strength will continue to increase. The strong body, coupled with the Night's Edge spell, the dustless land and the short-range apparition, is simply the nemesis of wizards. In addition to these spells, what excites Charles the most is naturally the ultimate result of this deduction, the lightless sun spell. From Charles' perspective, the lightless sun was the same as the eternal blazing sun, a dazzling ball of light that radiated light and heat like the sun. burning everything within its range. But from the enemy's perspective, the light ball of the lightless sun could not be seen at all. They won't notice anything is wrong until light and heat burst out, but by then, it was already too late. Moreover, the lightless sun curse also has the property of breaking magic. Although its theoretical destructive power may be slightly inferior to that of the eternal blazing sun curse, when it falls on enemies cast with protective spells or with resistant skin, the damage caused will be much higher than that of the eternal blazing sun curse. Charles' expression became more and more satisfied as a result. The lethality of his wizard form instantly soared. In many cases, there is no need to transform into an ancient dragon to resolve the battle. The ancient dragon form can be used as his most hidden trump card, to be used at the most critical moment. After increasing the lethality of the spell, Charles has not stopped his deduction in the ancient dragon form. His entire body is covered with dragon scales and dragon skin that have super anti-magic effects, giving him a strong sense of security. Ordinary spells would simply bounce off his dragon skin and dragon scales. Even if it was the Avada Kedavra curse, if an ordinary wizard used it on him, it would at most cause him to bleed from the nose, just as Moody said in the original book. But now that he had returned to his wizard form, what Charles felt most obviously was not the difference in magic power, but the fragility of the wizard form without the protection of dragon skin and scales. It feels really unsafe if it happened in the melee. A spell flying diagonally from behind might take Charles' life. Therefore, this time, Charles not only needs to improve his lethality, but also needs to improve the protection of his wizard form and become a true hexagonal warrior. It just so happened that when it came to protective spells, Ciel didn't even need to draw on any other materials. The dragon skin and dragon scales in his ancient dragon form are the best reference materials. The dragon skin and scales of the ancient dragon contained powerful magic arranged in a specific way, forming a porous membrane structure. At the moment of the spell bombardment, it would slide directly off like a drop of rain falling on a lotus leaf. The principles of the wizard's armor spells are somewhat similar, but of course they are far inferior to the dragon skin and scales of the ancient dragon. Ciel has the first-person perspective material, so of course he doesn't need to draw on other armor curse papers. The next moment, Charles let out a low growl in his mind. Deep Blue, use the ancient dragon skin and scales as materials to deduce the iron armor spell for me. 1. Deduction, 2 deductions, 3 deductions, come together. In an instant, more than 100,000 deduction points were deducted. The magic resistance principle of the ancient dragon's dragon scales and dragon skin, and the working method of the armor spell, were all clearly visible in Charles' mind. Countless parallel worlds and countless chairs studied the armor spell day and night, integrating the ancient dragon's anti-magic principles into it. The barrier released by the iron armor spell gradually produced differences at the microscopic level. Layer upon layer of structures similar to the magic power on the surface of an ancient dragon were produced on it. When the spell bombards, the layered, fluff-like structure will constantly brush against the spell, redirecting it as if to make it slide away. Out of 100% of the magic power, only 20% at most can actually hit the defense. No matter how powerful the spell is, if it is weakened like this, it will naturally be difficult to cause any substantial damage. When the structure was completed, Deep Blue's reminder sounded in Charles' mind. The 3 deductions of the iron armor curse are completed. The host obtains the dragon armor curse, which greatly increases the resistance to magic spells. Charles was not satisfied with this. In his opinion, protection that requires manual release is not called protection. What if I'm too late? What if I get backstabbed? Only when it runs non-stop 24 hours a day can it be called an infallible protective spell. Then, Charles interrupted Deep Blue. 4. Deductions, keep pushing up. In an instant, more knowledge about protective spells flooded into Charles' mind like a tide. The dragon armor curse not only became an instinct, but also, through repeated deductions, gradually became a spell similar to the Animagus Transfiguration, which could be completed with just a thought, without the need for casting. But this has not yet met Charles's requirements, and Deep Blue is still continuing to deduce. Finally, after spending another 1,000,000 points, he was able to use Ciel's subconscious to complete the dragon armor spell, and a defense that protected his entire body around the clock was born. A Deep Blue mechanical reminder sounded in Ciel's mind. After 4 deductions of the iron armor curse, the dragon armor curse will be activated subconsciously. It does not require the host to subjectively control it, and it can operate automatically around the clock to protect the body. The moment the Deep Blue prompt sounded, a strange instinct surged in Charles' body. Magic power began to gather on his body's surface without the need for a magic wand, and even without him actively thinking. a layer of invisible magical defense similar to the dragon skin and dragon scales of an ancient dragon enveloped his entire body. Chapter 59, Protection Strength. Someone delivers food to your door again. Please read. After hearing Shenlin's reminder, Charles' eyes finally showed satisfaction. There is no need to actively activate the spell, but instead rely on the subconscious mind to activate the spell to achieve 24-hour protection. This is the perfect protection spell. Then, Charles felt a magical protection covering his entire body. With curiosity in his eyes, he also wanted to see how strong the protective power of the dragon armor spell was, which he had spent more than 1,000,000 points to deduce 4 times from the iron armor spell. First is the defense against physical attacks. Charles waved the mithril wand, and a fruit knife in the room flew towards him with a whistling sound. But when it was about to approach Charles, the fruit knife first hit the dragon armor protection on Charles' body with a crisp sound. The fruit knife broke into 2 pieces. There was surprise in Charles' eyes. The basic industry of the magic world is not very good, and the quality of fruit knives is not good, but they will not break so easily. It could only be that the protective power of the dragon armor curse was so strong that it broke the fruit knife. But during this process, Charles didn't even feel anything. Not even the feeling of being bitten by a mosquito. A strange look appeared on his face. This shows that the previous test is nothing compared to the protective power of the dragon armor curse. Ciel waved the mithril wand again. All the odds and ends in the room turned into swords that gleamed with cold light, with the densely packed sharp blades pointed at Charles. The next moment, with the waving of the magic wand, thousands of swords whistled and submerged Charles. However, no sword can penetrate the protection of the dragon armor curse. At best, it made Charles feel a little numb, or even like he was being massaged. This time, Charles nodded in satisfaction. This kind of defense is enough to deal with most physical attacks. This is just the strength of the dragon armor curse activated subconsciously. According to Deep Blue's suggestion, if Charles actively activates the dragon armor curse, the defense will be raised to another level. At least in the original book, the dragon armor curse can easily withstand the various dangers that appear, even if a mountain monster or a giant swings a stick at him, or a fire dragon bites and tears Charles apart. Then, how strong is the resistance to magic that the dragon armor curse focuses on improving? After Charles pondered for a moment, the previous high-frequency laser spell burst out from the tip of the mithril wand and fell towards his fingers. And when the laser fell on the dragon armor curse protective layer, Charles had a strange feeling. It feels like trying to catch a loach with your hands. It's slippery and effortless. The same feeling was felt when the spell fell on the dragon armor curse. The original laser spell was enough to cut through gold and jade, but when it fell on Charles, it could only make him feel a little warmth, not even a burning pain. Ciel tried transfiguration again, but no matter what means are used, they will be weakened to the point of being almost ineffective by the dragon armor curse. Even when Charles learned a few spells on the spot, such as thunder explosions, fainting, and raging fire, and cast them on himself, he was not hurt at all. It was not until Charles used the Night's Edge spell that he had just deduced, which had a certain magic breaking effect, that the light blade slowly cut down. After a period of tenacious resistance, as Charles continued to output magic power, it suddenly loosened at a certain moment and cut through the protective layer of the dragon armor spell. After completing these tests, Charles had a better idea of what was going on. Without a spell of a certain strength, it is impossible to break the defense of the dragon armor curse. Even spells with magic breaking effects, such as his own Night's Edge spell and the Shadowless spell created by Snape in the original book, will be greatly weakened by the dragon armor curse. And continuous output is required to break the defense. This amount of time was enough for Charles to react. It can be said that the completion of the deduction of the dragon armor curse has made Charles' defensive capabilities soar to an unknown level. Now he is just like a human-shaped fire dragon, as if he is covered with scales, full of a sense of security. After deducing these spells, Charles still had nearly 32 million points left, which made him sigh. I need to save points for multiple deductions of occlumency, as well as the dragon language magic of the ancient dragon form. I also need to study potions and alchemy in the future. I feel like I still don't have enough points. It would be nice if there was someone who could deliver food to your door, like Dake's good friend. After a moment, Ciel shook his head and smiled bitterly. How can there be such a good thing? Forget it. I'd better stop dreaming and keep my feet on the ground, and honestly fleece the Ministry of Magic. Immediately, Ciel stood up and walked towards Diagon Alley, intending to see if he could get some precious materials and accumulate more deduction points in the last period of time before going to Hogwarts. Diagon Alley. A figure wrapped in a black robe, completely shielded from the sun, looked at the bustling street and sighed in a low voice. Diagon Alley England. The last time I came here was at least 100 years ago. If my master hadn't ordered me to look for ancient dragons this time, I'm afraid I would still be running those dragon farms in Romania, smelling the stench of those fire dragons. Now that you've finally come here, why not take a rest and relax first? After all, it's not that easy to find Gulong. Let's order first. The figure sat in the lobby of the Leaky Cauldron, ordered a deluxe set menu, and gave a special instruction: cook my steak rare. I want it with blood splattered all over it. Old Tom glanced at the figure in surprise, and then he understood something judging from the tightly covered attire and the strange request for food to be bloody. This person should be a vampire, but the surprise only lasted for a moment. After all, in the magical world, vampires were not such rare creatures. Wizards are not as afraid of vampires as muggles are. There are even vampires who become rock singers and are famous on the music charts in the magical world. While the vampire was waiting for his meal, Ciel walked out of the room on the second floor and headed towards Diagon Alley. When passing through the hall, Charles paused slightly and glanced at the vampire inconspicuously. Although he did not transform into an ancient dragon form, the feedback from the ancient dragon form enhanced his 5 senses as a wizard, especially his sense of smell. He smelled it immediately. This vampire had an extremely strong scent of dragon blood. This is not just about coming into contact with a fire dragon and having dragon blood on your body. I'm afraid there isn't a single drop of blood flowing in this guy's veins. It's all dragon blood. Grunt Ciel couldn't help swallowing. Smell good. I really want to hang this vampire upside down and drain the dragon blood from his body. No, this can't happen. Charles, you have to calm down. How can you attack others for no reason? There are too many people here and it's not convenient. Remember the taste first. It won't be too late to start if you can find a place with fewer people. Suppressing the throbbing in his heart, Charles walked away. Just after Charles left, the vampire looked up in Charles' direction, his eyes full of shock. He has a magic item given to him by his master, which has no other use but to sense the breath of ancient dragons. If there is an ancient dragon's aura within a certain range, this magic item will become hot. Just now when Charles walked past him, this item almost burned the vampire red. Rich, extremely rich scent of ancient dragons. A look of ecstasy appeared in the vampire's eyes. Lucky, I am so lucky that I can find traces of the ancient dragon so quickly. That little wizard must have come into contact with or encountered an ancient dragon, so he has a strong ancient dragon aura on his body. Follow him. I can find a juvenile ancient dragon. According to the master, the ancient dragon only masters the roar of power, so it will not be my opponent. I will be the first person in the history of the magic world to kill an ancient dragon alone. Then, he couldn't help licking his lips as if he had thought of something. Come to think of it, I'm almost tired of drinking dragon blood, but the taste of the ancient dragon's blood should be special. Maybe I can have a taste of it this time. Then, the vampire quickly stood up and followed Ciel from a distance in Diagon Alley. He's here. He's following me. Does he have feelings for me? The corners of Ciel's mouth slowly stretched out, revealing a smile that might terrify a vampire. Grateful. After Dake's friend, someone else has delivered food to our door. Chapter 60, Count Dracula? I draw a little blood, really just a little. Please read on. Charles walked all the way through Diagon Alley, then went into a deep alley entrance as if he was familiar with the place. The vampire following behind was also delighted when he saw this scene. He was worried that he couldn't attack Ciel in the hustle and bustle of Diagon Alley. After all, this is a place where Dumbledore can arrive at any time. God knows whether Dumbledore will buy candy in Diagon Alley or if he encountered a few stronger wizards who could hinder him for a short while, he would be completely finished when Dumbledore arrived. But before he could figure out how to kidnap Charles, Charles sneaked into a remote alley by himself. I remember this alley, the vampire whispered to himself. This alley seems to be Nocturne Alley, the gathering place for dark wizards in Britain. It will be much more convenient to do it here. Haha. I remember that young wizards were warned not to come to this alley, but I didn't expect that this little wizard named Ciel would actually come here. Is it curiosity? Or rebellion? It doesn't matter. This time the naughty boy will learn a lesson he will never forget. Immediately, the vampire took a step forward, quickly followed Charles, and also entered Nocturne Alley. After Charles entered Nocturne Alley, the atmosphere in the alley became extremely heavy. The natives of Nocturne Alley stiffened their bodies the moment they saw Charles, as if they remembered the feeling of being planted in the mud like potatoes. They were also complaining in their hearts, it's only been a short time. This little monster just ransacked Nocturne Alley. Why is he here again? Is it going to happen again? They are really poor. Some wizards in Nocturne Alley haven't gotten new ones yet. The dark wizard stood stiffly on both sides of the road, as if they didn't know what to do at this moment. They also saw the black-robed vampire following behind Charles for a moment. The dark wizard seemed to understand something, and looked at the vampires with unkindness and anger in their eyes. Well, it was you who brought the devils, no, Lord Charles here? You can target anyone else, but you have to pick on this little monster Charles? Some dark wizards even cast warning glances at the vampire, hoping to scare him away. After all, God knows if Charles goes crazy later, he might attack them too and rob them again. They just couldn't believe in Charles's character. This is the owner of Borgin and Berks who can threaten him with throwing feces. At this time, the vampire also noticed the situation in Nocturne Alley. He was also shocked to see rows of dark wizards standing on both sides. This Nocturne Alley lives up to its reputation. It's really very tough, eh? Little wizard came in and caused so many dark wizards to be eager to see him. He felt somewhat fortunate. Luckily, I caught up quickly. Otherwise, if I had been a little later, I'm afraid that only a few parts of Ciel would be left. Then, facing the warning looks cast at him by a group of dark wizards, the vampire took off his hood, revealing his bright red eyes. There was a fierce and cruel light in his eyes, as if he was warning these dark wizards, Charles is my prey, get out of here. The dark wizards were already cursing in their hearts. It's really hard to save a damned ghost with kind words. This vampire had already been warned to leave, but he actually thought that the dark wizards were trying to steal his prey? Stupid, there's no hope, eh? Dark wizard muttered something in his heart, then turned back to his room and closed the doors and windows. The other dark wizards followed suit and closed the doors and windows, even pulling the curtain shut without leaving any gaps. It was as if everything that was going to happen in Nocturne Alley had nothing to do with them. They knew nothing and saw nothing. Seeing the dark wizard's behavior and the empty Diagon Alley in the blink of an eye, the vampire raised a smug smile. I thought it would take more effort to deal with these dark wizards, but I didn't expect them to be so tactful. They must have recognized my blood-red eyes as the vampire lord and knew how powerful I am. This way, it will be much more convenient next time. Soon, the vampire lord no longer concealed his footsteps. Tap, tap, tap. The sound of leather boots clattering against the flagstones of Nocturne Alley was so clear that the echoes rolled and reverberated through the alley. The vampire count moved gracefully and walked calmly, like an experienced hunter who had already set his sights on his prey. At this moment, Charles, the prey, seemed to have heard the noise behind him. An 11-year-old little wizard accidentally entered a place like Nocturne Alley. Now the alley was empty, with only the sound of footsteps coming from behind. You can imagine how he felt. Scared, so scared. Charles was so scared that tears flowed from the corners of his mouth. He wiped them quickly and ran towards the deeper and more winding alley. The vampire lord raised a teasing smile and continued to chase after him at his leisurely pace. It wasn't until a few minutes later, in a dead end, that the vampire count caught up with Charles. Looking at Charles' figure with his back to him, the vampire count's eyes became more and more teasing. Oh, did you find something wrong? Are you scared? But it's too late, poor child. Remember, don't go into such a dangerous place alone next time. He approached Charles gracefully step by step, and then he saw Charles' body trembling, as if he was trying hard to endure something. The vampire lord opened his mouth, revealing his sharp canine teeth, and slowly approached Charles' neck. Don't worry, it will all be over soon. When I'll learn from your blood what I want, you will no longer be afraid, child. In return, you will also gain immortality. Now, tell me everything. Instantly, the vampire count bit Ciel's neck elegantly, as if he was sipping red wine. But the next moment, the feeling from the teeth was not the feeling of puncturing blood vessels and spreading blood. Instead, he felt a sharp pain, as if he had bitten on an iron ingot. The vampire count cried out in pain, holding his teeth. What? At this moment, Charles turned around. The vampire count then realized that Charles, who had been trembling since the beginning, did not show fear at all. It's like a gourmet seeing delicious food, full of desire and excitement. At this moment, the vampire count's eyes went dark, his neck was strangled by Charles' hand, and his whole body was lifted up holding the vampire count's hand. He didn't feel like an 11-year-old wizard at all, but more like the claw of a young fire dragon. Ciel looked at the vampire lord and licked his lips. You're a vampire, right? Then you should have a lot of blood. Don't worry, I won't hurt you. I just want to draw some blood from you. Yes, be good, don't resist, let me smoke a little. I really only smoke a little. Ciel waved his wand and used transfiguration to conjure up an extra-large blood pump. At the end of the blood pump is a small swimming pool large enough for an elephant to bathe. Ciel licked his lips. Just fill 3 swimming pools for this. You are a vampire. This amount of blood shouldn't be too much for you, right? Chapter 61. A freak beyond Dumbledore. Hearing Charles' whispers, and the blood pump and small swimming pool that Charles transformed, the vampire count who was strangled by the neck was stunned for a moment, and then a strong sense of humiliation and anger rose in his chest. It has always been the case that vampires suck the blood of others, but now someone wants to drain the blood of a vampire. This is simply a shame. The black hood of the vampire lord slipped off, revealing the handsome pale face underneath the hood, and the blood-red pupils that represented a high-level vampire. There was cold rage in his pupils. The vampire count grabbed Charles' wrist, which was strangling his neck, and exerted force suddenly, trying to break Charles' wrist. But when he grabbed Charles' wrist, it felt like he was grabbing and ironing it. Not to mention breaking it, he couldn't even cause the slightest damage. The vampire's impressive physical strength was completely wiped out by the dragon armor covering Charles' body, and failed to cause any waves. On the contrary, when Charles saw that the vampire count dared to resist, his eyes suddenly turned cold, and he threw several big blows with his empty hand. The vampire count suddenly felt as if he was kicked in the face by a wild horse. Stars appeared in his eyes and there was only one thought left in his mind. What on earth did this Charles eat to grow up? Isn't he a half-giant? When he recovered from the dizziness, the vampire count's body instantly turned into a group of bats and dispersed, breaking away from Charles's palm and forming again more than 10 meters away. This time, his expression was more serious, not as casual as he had been at the beginning, as if he was hunting a little wizard who is related to an ancient dragon. Is indeed somewhat peculiar. In terms of physical defense and physical strength, even a half-blood giant might not be as good as you, but fighting with bare hands is just the behavior of a wild beast. Magic is the real power. How much magic can you learn before you even enter Hogwarts? The vampire lord drew his wand and uttered a low spell. In an instant, rays of blood-red light condensed and whizzed towards Charles, hitting him one after another. There was a fierce look in the vampire lord's eyes. Blood burning curse, blood blade curse. These are special spells that only Romanian vampires can use. After being cursed, the blood will burn out like a flame, or turn into a sharp blade in the blood vessels and cut the flesh apart. No matter which one it is, the feeling is no better than having your heart pierced and your bones torn out. In fact, you didn't have to suffer all this. You just had to let me suck your blood and then tell me everything. It would be over. But who told you to resist? Then this is what you deserve. The vampire count looked at Charles coldly, waiting for Charles to scream under the torture of the curse. But Ciel's body didn't even tremble. Those spells that hit him were just like what he had tried before. They were like a drop in the ocean in front of the protection of the dragon armor curse. Most of the magic power was lost and could not shake the protection of the dragon armor curse at all. Charles looked at the vampire count, his face darkened, and he said darkly, "Who allowed you to waste magic power? Your vampire magic is related to blood. Every drop of your blood belongs to me. Who allowed you to waste my blood? Waste is shameful and unforgivable." The next moment, Ciel waved his wand. The dustless land curse surged, and the invisible magical field spread, enveloping the vampire lord. This spell was originally derived from a spell that was used to expel dark magic creatures, and it was surprisingly effective against vampires. The moment he was enveloped by the dustless land, the vampire lord felt that the magic power surging through his body suddenly became silent, and he could not use it at all. An unprecedented feeling of weakness suddenly enveloped his body. The next offensive he was planning was also interrupted, but Charles's movements did not pause at all. With a low short-range apparition spell, Charles crossed the distance in an instant and came in front of the vampire lord. The tip of the mithril wand in his hand was emitting a blade of light that only Charles could see. Nightblade curse. Charles flicked his wrist and used all the fencing skills he had practiced in Muggle school on the vampire lord without reservation. As the light blade flew, it easily cut through the magical protection on the vampire's skin. In just a moment, the vampire count was chopped into 5 equal parts by Charles, and fell to the ground with a crackling sound. It wasn't until the severe pain hit the vampire count that he realized what was happening. There was extreme shock and horror in his eyes. Was the magic that just now caused Ciel to approach him very quickly a short-distance apparition? How can this be? This is clearly a combat skill that only top wizards can master. How could it appear in an 11-year-old wizard who has not yet entered school? Exclamation mark. There was also the spell that briefly imprisoned his magic power, and the invisible killing spell that could easily cut through his skin, which was resistant to count-level vampires. What is going on with this, Charles? When did an 11-year-old wizard become so powerful? Exclamation mark. In a trance, the vampire count recalled the comments he had heard from his master when he mentioned wizards such as Dumbledore and Voldemort. In the past 100 years, there have been several freaks in the wizarding world, such as Grindelwald, Dumbledore, and Voldemort. Each of them was enough to amaze an era. 3. Wizards like this have appeared in 100 years. Perhaps there will be wizards more amazing than them in the future. This is the mysterious resistance of the magic world before the return of the ancient times. Unfortunately, all the internal fighting was in vain. The return of the ancients is doomed to be unstoppable. Words. About the ancients, about ancient times, the vampire count had no idea what that meant, but when Grindelwald was wreaking havoc in Europe, the vampire lord had witnessed him taking action. A single fiery curse is enough to burn down a small city according to the master. Its destructive power is even close to that of the dragon language magic of an adult ancient dragon. Taking other means into account, even if he really encounters an adult ancient dragon, Grindelwald might be able to accomplish a feat never seen before in the history of magic and slay the dragon alone. Dumbledore was at this level back then, and after winning the duel with Grindelwald, Dumbledore has only become more terrifying over the years. As for Voldemort, the master gave his evaluation, saying that he was a crazy existence in the field of soul-splitting magic. In terms of difficulty, he is even more difficult than Dumbledore. The Charles in front of him is of course far inferior to the level of Dumbledore, Grindelwald or even Voldemort, but based on the strength he has shown so far, the elite aurors in the wizarding world, most of the professors at Hogwarts and even the vice president, would not be a match for Ciel. He was only 11 years old and had not even entered Hogwarts yet. What will the scene be like if he has already acquired countless knowledge by the time he graduates in a few years? Being invincible after graduation may not be a delusion. Thinking of that scene, the vampire count could confirm one thing: Ciel is definitely the genius that the protagonist mentioned, who may surpass Dumbledore and others, a freak who is even more perverted than Dumbledore. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelists. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 62. The blood pump is hitting the heart. You call this drawing blood? After realizing Charles' extraordinary behavior, the vampire count suddenly realized something. No wonder I smelled the scent of an ancient dragon on him. Indeed, only freaks who can amaze an entire wizarding era are qualified to come into contact with creatures like ancient dragons. It's even possible that just like Dumbledore had a phoenix loyal to him, the ancient dragon might even serve the Shire. But I am not just any ordinary person. I am not an ordinary vampire lord. Vampires that suck human blood and vampires that suck dragon blood are completely two different beings. Whether it's the physical body or magic, under the guidance of the master, I have already become a vampire from another dimension. Blood was surging on the vampire count's shattered body, and the body that was originally divided into 5 parts quickly gathered together. Tissue buds grew out of the wound in an instant, and the almost dismembered wound healed at a speed visible to the naked eye, returning to its original shape in a moment. Not only that, his body was nearly twice as tall as before, and small scales similar to dragon scales grew on his body. Even his head had dragon spikes and horns, making him look like a fusion of a vampire and a fire dragon. The vampire count roared with a dull dragon roar. You are able to force me to use my dragon blood form, little wizard. I'm afraid there will never be another amazing person like you in the magic world, but no matter how terrible your future will be, you haven't reached that point yet. Next, you will see what's special about me. When Charles saw that the vampire count had recovered from his injuries quickly and had entered the second stage, veins on his forehead instantly popped up and his expression twisted, revealing his extreme rage. Did I not make myself clear enough? How dare you waste my magic power and my dragon blood? Ciel took a deep breath and then waved his wand wildly. The lightless sun, the lightless sun, lightless sun. 5 balls of light, visible only to Ciel, flew towards the vampire count. When surrounded by 5 rays of lightless sun, the vampire count looked at the empty space around him. There was clearly nothing there, but he felt a great, creepy fear. It seemed as if he would be annihilated by some horrible magic in the next moment. The vampire count, who had just been roaring proudly and preparing for a big fight, suddenly shouted at the fastest speed in his life, "Don't Cast the spell, I surrender. Charles stared at him with extremely dangerous eyes. Don't you want to show me what's special about you? The vampire lord forced a smile. I am very aware of the times. It's just 3 swimming pools of blood. I can donate it. Can't I just donate it? Charles raised his eyebrows, and did not disperse the lightless sun immediately. Instead, he pointed at the blood pump that appeared on the ground beside him. So, what are you waiting for? Connect it and draw blood yourself. The vampire lord nodded repeatedly, but after picking up the blood pump, he was a little troubled. Lord Ciel, where's the needle for this thing? This is just such a thick old water pipe. It can't be inserted into a blood vessel. How do I draw blood? Charles said faintly. What kind of needle do you want? How slowly does a needle draw blood? You are a vampire. How can you still use the human method of drawing blood? Everyone's time is precious. Can you be more efficient? Come, I'll teach you a way to draw blood suitable for a vampire. Immediately, Charles waved his wand, and the blood pump's pipe, which was thicker than a fist, floated up. He held the water pipe, pointed it at the heart of the vampire count, and then, in front of the vampire count's wide-open eyes, stabbed it hard and stuffed it directly into the heart. Connect it here. The blood pressure is high, and the blood pumping is fast. Come on, hurry up. Get your heart pumping more and pumping out more blood. The vampire lord turned pale. This is called blood drawing. You call putting a blood pump against the heart drawing blood? I want to report it. I want to report it to the Society for the Protection of Humanoid and Magical Creatures in the Wizarding World. Someone is abusing vampires. But just as the vampire count's expression changed, Charles showed an unfriendly look. Why, are you dissatisfied with the way I taught you to draw blood? Okay, maybe it's too tiring for you to move your heart and pump blood. I can help you a little bit. As he spoke, Charles raised his foot, apparently trying to use external force to help the vampire count pump blood. The vampire count's face instantly became more horrified, and he said repeatedly, No, don't bother me, Sir Charles. I can pump it myself. I'm not exaggerating, but a vampire like me who sucks dragon blood has a strong heart. It's just 3 swimming pools, right? I'll be done in a short while. Sir Charles, take a rest. I'll do it myself. As he spoke, the vampire count began beating his heart vigorously. Bang, bang, bang. The sound like beating drums came from the exposed chest, dull and powerful, as if it really was a dragon's heart. While the vampire count was beating his heart, large streams of blood flowed from the blood pump into the swimming pool on the ground, forming an ever-expanding pool of blood inside. The vampire count felt a little relieved and quite optimistic. At this rate, 3 small swimming pools should be filled soon. Although the amount of blood released was not small, for a vampire like him, it was at most some bruises and was not life-threatening. Then I went back to Romania and smoked a few more dragons before coming back anyway. His master is behind the dragon farm in Romania. The fire dragon is a frequent guest on his table, and he is almost tired of eating it. Although the mission failed, it was because he encountered a freak like Charles who had extraordinary means. I believe the master will not blame him too much. At least he could confirm that Charles was related to the ancient dragon, which was already a great achievement. If I could get the master to give me some tips, then dealing with Charles would be easy. Right, next time, I must taste the blood of this monster that may not be born once in a generation in this magical world. After he came to his senses, the vampire count looked towards the swimming pool. According to the previous estimate of the blood pumping speed, the first swimming pool should be full by now. Right, what the vampire count didn't expect was that, as far as he could see, the first swimming pool was only covered with a shallow layer of blood. There doesn't seem to be much difference at all. This made him open his eyes wide. How is this possible? I've clearly pumped out a lot of blood, so why is the blood in this swimming pool so shallow? When he looked at Charles with suspicion, Charles asked him a question. You are the vampire count. You have a long lifespan. You must have lived for a long time. Have you ever come into contact with any great mathematicians? Hearing this question, the vampire count didn't understand the meaning, but he still answered, I've seen it. I met a theologian when he was writing a book on natural philosophy, and I talked with him for a while. Ciel showed a surprised expression and continued, then you should have some knowledge in mathematics. Solving a simple elementary school math problem shouldn't be a problem for you. The vampire count showed a hint of curiosity and complacency on his face, and motioned for Charles to ask. But the next question Charles asked made the vampire count stunned. If You add water to a 0.9-liter swimming pool at a rate of liter per second, and at the same time open the tap at the bottom of the pool and add water to the large vat at a rate of liters per second. How long will it take to fill the pool? Chapter 63, Count Vampire, Help, There's a Vampire. When hearing the question asked by Charles, the vampire count frowned and looked at someone as if he was mentally retarded. What kind of stupid question is this? What idiot would fill a swimming pool like that? This is too stupid. The next moment, his expression suddenly changed. He looked at Charles with an expression of disbelief, and then looked at the swimming pool, which seemed to have not changed at all. You don't tell me that's how you put blood in it? Charles looked innocent. Is there anything wrong with bleeding like this? That's what I learned when I was little. How can you fill a swimming pool without opening a tap on the other side? Charles slowly grinned. It's okay, relax, I'll tell you the answer directly. It only takes 10,000 seconds to fill a swimming pool, and 30,000 seconds to fill 3 swimming pools. For a vampire count like you, such a short time is just a blink of an eye. Or, if you work harder and pump more blood, the time will be shorter. Come, let me help you. Immediately, Charles stepped on the vampire count's hard and exerted force. Suddenly, sure enough, at the other end of the blood pump, the speed of blood gushing out immediately increased visibly, causing the blood level in the swimming pool to slowly rise. But at this moment, the vampire lord's face turned pale. 30,000 seconds? This must have taken 7 or 8 hours, right? Did Charles want to bleed himself this way from the very beginning? Vampires have never seen this kind of extraction before, and their physiques can't stand it. The vampire count's face was filled with fear, and he howled at the top of his lungs towards the outside of Nocturne Alley. Help, help, there's a vampire sucking blood, help. However, his hoarse shouts in Nocturne Alley did not cause any ripples at all, as if they were swallowed up by the darkness there. But the vampire count's screams became more and more shrill, and finally, there was movement in Nocturne Alley. One after another, dark wizards came out of their homes and came to the alley. Seeing this scene from afar, the vampire count's eyes showed hope. I knew it, wizards in the magical world still have humanity. The act for the protection of humanoid magical creatures still applies in Nocturne Alley. Save me, please save me. But the next moment, when he saw the actions of these dark wizards, the vampire count fell into a daze. When these dark wizards walked into the alley, they forced smiles on their faces and began singing and dancing. Tonight, another carnival ceremony begins in Nocturne Alley. Let's sing and celebrate another beautiful day alive. Immediately, these dark wizards began to fiddle with all kinds of noisy musical instruments, as if they were unaware of what horrific things were happening deep in the alley. Some of them even directly released amplification spells and sang loudly in Nocturne Alley. In an instant, the vampire lord's cry for help was drowned out by the sound of revelry. The vampire lord finally reacted. It turns out that these dark wizards in Nocturne Alley have been in cahoots with Ciel from the very beginning. Charles had deliberately lured me here, and there were even so many dark wizards here as his accomplices. The vampire count turned his head and looked at Charles, his face full of grief, anger and fear. Devil, you are such a devil to be hanging out with dark wizards at such a young age. You're going to Azkaban. Ciel smiled grimly and stepped hard on the heart of the vampire lord. Azkaban? How could that be? Everyone in Nocturne Alley can testify for me. I am a panicked little wizard who was followed by a vampire. I am pitiful, weak and helpless. How could I end up in Azkaban? Do you think people will believe the accusation of a vampire lord or the crying of a little wizard? Come on, don't waste your energy calling for help. No one will come to save you even if you scream your throat out. Don't think too much, it will be over in another hour or two. Just work harder. Feeling the severe pain from his heart and the weakness from the continuous blood being pumped out, the vampire count wailed. Stop stepping on it. Stop stepping on it. I'll pump it myself. Please stop stepping on it. At this moment, he had no other thoughts. He stared intently at the rising blood level in the swimming pool, hoping that this nightmare time would pass quickly. After a full hour and a half, with the vampire count's heart beating at full speed, 2.5 of the 3 swimming pools had been filled. But at this time, he really couldn't pump any blood. Such a large amount of blood had already severely damaged his essence, and his face had turned pale and blue, like a mummy. The vampire lord made a faint pleading sound. I literally don't have a drop left. Let me go, please. Charles sighed when he heard this. Is that so? It seems like the pump isn't working, but There's still half of the swimming pool that hasn't been filled. I'm a man of my word, and I'll let you go as long as you fill it up. But the problem is that you haven't filled it up yet. Forget it. I'm not a devil. I'll provide you with a solution for free so that all this can end as soon as possible. The vampire count, who had been extremely weak from bleeding and almost lost the ability to think, burst into tears of gratitude. Then Charles was seen waving his magic wand and turning the blood pump into a device similar to a high-pressure water gun. Charles looked at the group of dark wizards who were still trying to party to cover up the wailing of the vampire lord, and said, "Okay, you guys performed well today, so I won't rob you. Go. Get me some jars of water. You have nothing to do here." When the dark wizards heard this, they felt like they had been pardoned in just a few moments. More than a dozen large jars of water were delivered to Charles. When the dark wizards who came to deliver water saw the miserable state of the vampire lord, they felt a mixture of relief and fear in their hearts. It's so tragic. It's really so tragic. Fortunately, Lord Charles did not use such means to deal with them that day. He simply robbed them of everything and then planted potatoes for a while. Compared to this vampire, this treatment is like heaven. After the dark wizards left, the vampire count looked at the high-pressure water gun and the dozen or so tanks of water in front of him. Even though his brain was lacking in blood and dull, he realized that something was wrong. He looked at Charles tremblingly. What are you going to do?" Ciel smiled. "Have you ever studied science? When a hypertonic solution and a hypotonic solution are put together, the concentration will always be neutralized. Okay, let me put it in a way that you can understand. It's like when you drink a beverage. It looks like you've finished it, but there's actually still some left on the cup. You just need to rinse it with water and some more will come out. Be good, bear with it, it will be over soon." As he spoke, Charles took out the high-pressure water gun and thrust it into the vampire count's heart again, then suddenly hissed. The dripping dragon blood gushed out again. Charles nodded in satisfaction. Vampire blood is like water in a sponge. If you squeeze it hard, there will always be water. Look, here it is. Chapter 64, The dragon's blood has become an ocean. The dragon's bones are like mountains. We will never let you escape again. When the high-pressure water gun flushed out the little remaining dragon blood in his body, the vampire count looked even more haggard. At this moment, all he had left in his heart was regret. No matter who you mess with, you shouldn't mess with this little wizard beneath the harmless appearance. There is clearly a heart as cold as iron. It is somewhat ironic that the vampire, who lives by sucking blood, is now almost dying from being bled to death. He could even feel that death was smiling at him. But at this moment, the crisp sound of water drops falling to the ground was heard, awakening the vampire count's last desire for life. He pointed tremblingly at the swimming pool that had begun to overflow with blood, and made a weak sound. It's full, it's full." Charles also turned to look at the swimming pool and suddenly realized, "Oh, it's full. Okay, I see. Then it won't be watery anymore. It's too watery. It feels like there really isn't much left." Then he released the high-pressure water gun. The vampire count showed ecstasy on his face at having escaped from a desperate situation, but the next moment, Ciel's wand was pointed at him. The sharp edge of the knife burst out from the tip of the wand again, nailing it to the ground. The vampire lord widened his eyes and stared at Charles. You lied to me." Ciel grinned. "You're a 100-year-old vampire. Please don't be so naive. Since I have offended you to death, of course I have to kill you. This is the safest way. Otherwise, what if you get some powerful magic item, or master some powerful spell, and come to seek revenge on me again? I, Ciel, have always been cautious in doing things." Immediately, Charles looked indifferent and collected the dragon blood drawn from the vampire count. Then he waved his wand. A ball of light that only Ciel could see floated towards the vampire count. When Charles reached the entrance of the alley, the lightless sun spell erupted, radiating endless light and heat within a 10-meter radius centered on the vampire lord. Although Charles did not use his full strength to release the lightless sun spell in order to avoid making too much noise, but for dark creatures, the lightless sun is extremely restraining in itself, and it also has the ability to break magic. The vampire's resistance to magic is useless in front of it. In addition, the vampire lord is now so weak that even muggles can kill him. A weakened version of the lightless sun curse is more than enough to annihilate him. The body of the vampire lord was annihilated like ashes under the lightless sun, without even a trace of residue left amid the light and heat. Only roars filled with resentment could be heard. "The master will not let you go, you devil. I'm waiting for you. You will die 100 times more miserably than I did, in The blink of an eye, the roar was silenced, but suddenly, a warning sign struck Charles hard. He turned his head and saw a faint flash of blood appear in his field of vision, along with a sense of oppression that was much stronger than that of the vampire count. The source of the bloodlight was a blood-colored pentagram magic circle, floating in the air, which was quite strange. Ciel clenched his mithril wand tightly, his expression solemn. Then, a shadow was projected from the blood-colored pentagram magic circle. In the shadow, there was a vast sea of blood, extremely sticky, drowning everything in sight. With Charles' familiarity with dragon blood, even if what appeared before his eyes was just a phantom, he could recognize that all the blood in this sea of blood was dragon blood. Not only that, in addition to dragon blood, in the sea of blood, you can also see complete dragon bones floating in it among the waves. A rough estimate shows that at least several thousand fire dragons died. Grunt. Ciel couldn't help but swallow, and his breathing quickened. At this moment, a coffin emerged from the shadow. The sense of oppression becomes stronger through the phantom. The low and cold voice passed through the shadow and reached Charles' ears. You killed my servant. He served me for a long time and was very capable. I spent a lot of dragon blood to train him, but now he died in your hands. Do you know what mistake you made? Charles lowered his head and took a deep breath. The virtual scene before his eyes and the oppressive feeling emanating from it had a great shock on him. Yes. Yeah. Charles moved his lips with difficulty, lowered his head and uttered these words, and in the shadow, the being in the coffin seemed quite satisfied with Charles' attitude of bowing his head, trembling, and admitting his mistakes. His tone softened a little, and even the oppressive feeling he exuded was reduced a little. Wizard, it seems that you are very aware of the current situation. Charles lowered his head and continued. Yes. The being in the coffin said again, I have to admit, although my servant is weak, there are not many in the magic world who can kill him. It's rare to be able to kill him at your age, even in the ancient times. Just like Dumbledore, Grindelwald, and Voldemort were the protagonists of the last era, it seems that you should be the protagonist of the next era of the wizarding world. Faced with a praise from this mysterious being, Charles used trembling hands to find a book in the package, and turned the pages tremblingly, making circles and dots with a feather pen, not knowing whether he was recording or looking for something. Yeah, the being in the coffin chuckled, as if he was pleased that a protagonist of the times was trembling in fear in front of him. Don't be afraid. It's just the death of an insignificant servant. It's nothing compared to you and the news you can bring me. I can smell it. Even from this distance, I can smell the strong scent of ancient dragons on you. You must recognize it. Tell me its information, and I will give you unimaginable gifts. There are some things that even Dumbledore can't get, but I can give them to you. Charles was still nodding. Yes. The being in the coffin seemed to have not expected that Charles would agree so readily. He immediately asked eagerly, then, tell me quickly, where is Gulong? Bring it to me. Charles did it even raise his head and kept flipping through the book. Yeah. The being in the coffin was silent for a moment. Are you really listening to me, Charles? Yes. The being in the coffin became increasingly silent, and asked with some uncertainty, are you listening to me, or are you just trying to fool me, Charles? Yes. The next moment, the things in the coffin broke through. Besides, yes, and right. Can you say anything else? I'm talking to you, don't you hear me? Tell me the news about Gulong. Look through books. How do you know how to look through books? As long as you tell me the news about the ancient dragon, I can give you any magic book you want. At this moment, Charles' finger stopped at a certain page of the magic book, and joy appeared in his eyes. Found it, then. He answered the question about what was in the coffin. The book I'm reading is a little less popular. It contains some less popular spells that are rarely used. What I'm looking for is this marking spell, which can mark an object or creature so that it won't be lost. The beings in the coffin were all stunned for a moment. He really couldn't understand Ciel's train of thought. What are young people thinking about nowadays? Why do you feel crazy? Could it be that the ancients are about to return, and the protagonists of the era they are born in are affected and go crazy? After a moment, he couldn't help but ask out of curiosity, marking spell, what do you want to mark? At this moment, Charles suddenly looked up, looking at the sea of dragon blood and the mountain of dragon bones in the virtual shadow. He couldn't help swallowing a big mouthful of saliva again, and said faintly with a greedy smile on the corner of his mouth, who else can I tag? Of course I marked you, dragon. Blood forms an ocean, dragon bones form a mountain, and there is also a coffin this big that is made of various precious materials. Even the chains that tie the coffin are made of magical metals. There's actually such a good place in the magic world. Ciel licked his lips, his eyes full of desire. I won't make the same mistake again. I've learned my lesson. If I come across a good buffet restaurant, I'll mark it immediately. Don't try to hide. Don't try to run away. You can't run away. I will find you no matter where you are. The next moment, Charles had already scanned all the marked spells on the spell book. A deep blue reminder sounded in his mind. The host obtains deducible knowledge. The marking spell, do. You want to spend 10,000 deduction points to perform the deduction. Charles took a deep breath and looked at the scene in the shadow. I can't stand it anymore. I really can't stand it anymore. I will never let such a good place slip away from my sight again. I want to possess you. I want to have you all to myself. I want to leave my mark here. Deep blue, deduce for me. Period. Chapter 66 5 Deductions. Space-time marking. Print a character on your coffin. The words that came out of Charles' mouth made the being in the coffin, who had seen countless storms, fall into silence and astonishment. In a trance, he even wondered if he had slept for too long and had some hearing problems. Tag yourself. Such unfamiliar words, and from what Charles said, he is planning to take over his Dragon Blood Sea and Dragon Bone Mountain, even coveting his own coffin? After a moment's silence, a deep laugh echoed in the sea of dragon blood. In an instant, a huge wave of blood arose. The oppressive feeling that had just been slightly suppressed due to Charles' understanding suddenly increased dramatically. Even if it was just a phantom, it was suffocating. But in the moment when the being in the coffin laughed out of anger, in Charles' mind, Deep Blue had already deducted the deduction points and was deducing the marking spell at an unimaginable speed. This kind of magic, which is rather rare, difficult but has few uses, is generally used by certain organizations. For example, the Phoenix symbol of the Order of the Phoenix and the Dark Mark of the Death Eaters. But even in such a tightly organized wizarding organization, apart from Voldemort, who deliberately studied and developed the Dark Mark to be branded on his body in order to reward the Death Eaters, almost no one would continue to conduct in-depth research in this direction. But at this moment, the knowledge about marking magic was pouring into Charles' mind at a speed that ordinary people could hardly imagine. In an instant, he possessed attainments in marked magic that far surpassed almost all wizards. A deep blue reminder sounded in Ciel's mind. The first deduction of marking magic is completed. The host can cast a mark that is unique to him, and enemies within the mark range may be shocked and fall into panic. The scene where the dark mark appeared in the original novel emerged in Ciel's mind. Although this mark also represents the notorious notoriety of Voldemort and the Death Eaters, which are feared in the wizarding world, in a sense, the panic that occurs every time the dark mark appears should also have a similar deterrent effect. But this is not the direction Charles wants. Besides, this deterrent effect is far inferior to Charles's complete expulsion spell, and it is unlikely to have any effect on the existence in the Sea of Dragon Blood. Even the mark itself might be easily crushed by the opponent's magic power. Therefore, without any pause, Charles said decisively in his mind, "Push me in the direction of tracking and positioning." Deduced to me that you can use a shadow connection to brand the other party. No matter who the other party is, even someone of Dumbledore's level, there is no way he can erase the mark. Deep blue, 3 deductions, 4 deductions, if that's not enough, 5 deductions, come on, as Charles roared in his mind, the deduction points began to burn wildly. 100,000, 200,000, 300,000, 1 million, 2 million, 3 million, in just a few moments, 5 million deduction points were consumed. But in Charles' opinion, it was all worth it. If you can swallow this sea of dragon blood, eat this mountain of dragon bones, and even gnaw on the coffin lid, the reward will be at least tens of millions of points. For this reason, he would never make the same mistake he made in our litter again, and must keep the authority of positioning firmly in his own hands. Even if we don't have the strength to go there for the time being, we can't let the other party get away when he is strong enough. All the things he has coveted for a long time will be his. All kinds of knowledge about marks and brands flooded into Ciel's mind in this remote field. Charles even dared to say that no one knew marking magic better than him. Dumbledore and Voldemort have to step back a little. If Charles wanted to, the dark mark that Voldemort had to work so hard to create could be wiped out by Charles with just a wave of his wand. Similarly, Ciel can easily remove the dark mark that many Death Eaters dream of removing. He can even change the skull and snake logo to SpongeBob SquarePants and Patrick Star without changing the effect of the dark mark, so that even Voldemort himself can change it back. However, these uses are just the tip of the iceberg of Charles' current marking magic and are not worth mentioning at all at this time. A deep blue prompt sounded. 5. Deductions of marking magic are completed, and the host obtains a special marking magic, time and space marking. This marking magic can be used on any object that has contact with a host in time and space. That is, if the host senses the other party's existence in time and space, he can mark it. Once this mark magic is released, it will definitely hide unless it is affected by a higher level of space-time magic. No protective magic can block or delay this mark magic. At the same time, once the mark is branded, unless the host actively removes it or some higher level space-time magic intervenes, the mark cannot be affected or eliminated by any magic. In addition, once the mark is branded, the host can use the mark as a coordinate to perform apparition, and curse magic can also be used on the marked object. Seeing the information displayed in deep blue, Charles couldn't help but take a deep breath, and suddenly felt like he had won the lottery. It has to be said that after 5 deductions, even the originally unpopular and useless marking magic was transformed into something magical, producing effects that Charles could not have imagined. Maybe this magic is not very useful in frontal combat, but it is really disgusting to the opponent. Once you are marked, it cannot be removed, and from now on, Charles may appear in front of you at any time and anywhere to attack you. What's more, Charles can also release curses from a long distance. What does it mean to kill the enemy from thousands of miles away? At this moment, Deep Blue sounded the reminder again. Host, please decide the appearance of the space-time marker. This appearance can be changed at any time. Charles hesitated for a moment. I'm a pragmatic person. I don't want to do anything fancy like the Phoenix logo or the Dark Magic logo. I'm not good at logo design, so I'll just go with the most direct one. He looked at the sea of blood in the shadow. Won't this place be torn down sooner or later? Then we can use this as a marker for places like this, as well as places like Arliet. The next moment, Charles raised the mithril wand and chanted this spell of time and space marking. In an instant, a fiery red light flew out from the tip of the mithril wand and directly sank into the shadow in front of Charles. A fiery red light emerged in the churning sea of dragon blood. The being in the coffin couldn't help but let out a cry of surprise. What kind of magic is this? How would it appear here? All the 108 protective spells I set up outside didn't react. The fiery red light rapidly approached his coffin. It is impossible for the being in the coffin to watch and let such unknown magic fly over. Immediately afterwards, a sea of blood was seen surging, and a skull dragon flapped its wings and flew up, spewing blood flames. There were even a few skull dragons that spewed out roars of power that were unique to ancient dragons. A devastating scene was born in the sea of dragon blood. But no matter how violent the blood flames were, no matter how terrifying the impact of the roar of power was, the fiery red light was completely unaffected. Even if countless bone dragons crawled out and blocked the coffin, the fiery red light ignored them and passed through them directly, leaving a bright red mark on the coffin in an unstoppable manner. Dismantle. Chapter 67, Ciel's Killing Curse. Deducing the Patroness. When the time and space marking spell cast by Charles printed the word demolish on the coffin, the dragon blood sea, which was originally raging with bloody waves, calmed down. Because of this, it seemed as if the beings in the coffin were all shocked by this unstoppable marking magic, and they began to feel fear in their hearts. Such strange magic was unheard of, even though he had existed in the magic world for so long. Is this symbol printed on his coffin some kind of magic circle, or a rune with special powers? Charles's performance was beyond his expectations, forcing him to concentrate and be on guard. Just a moment later, the being in the coffin reviewed all the magical knowledge in his mind, and his expression gradually changed. He could confirm that the symbol printed on his coffin was not any known word or rune after it was printed. Nothing else happened like it was just a simple mark, and the existence in the coffin also dug out the meaning of this text in a corner of his mind. It seems to be a text from some oriental country, and it means demolition. When he realized this, his shock and anger were truly beyond words. It is a great shame to have such a mark printed on one's coffin. It is really a great shame. A low roar came from within the coffin. The iron chains wrapped around the coffin clanged, and the coffin lid began to tremble continuously, as if something was trying to get out of it. In the sea of dragon blood, raging waves far more ferocious than before were surging one after another. Those bone dragons also roared angrily. Are you humiliating me, wizard? You have no idea what you have done. or what kind of being you have angered, even. Dumbledore can't protect you forever. No matter how much it costs, I will crawl out of the coffin and make you pay the price." As the being in the coffin became furious, Charles could see a red light emerging from the shadow in front of him. A sense of crisis arose from this, which made his scalp tingle. It seemed that even through the shadow, the spell that was being brewed by that existence would pose a fatal threat to him. Ciel estimated that his wizard form would not be able to withstand this spell even if he transformed into an ancient dragon and used his most powerful dragon language magic, Storm Call, to fight against this spell. He would probably suffer heavy damage. Is this the strength of the old monster hidden in the magic world? Yes, Nick Flamel can survive until now with the help of the Philosopher's Stone, and Voldemort also has the Horcruxes. How could those former wizards and powerful figures in the wizarding world not have similar means to prolong their lives? The accumulation of power over the long years is enough to make their strength even more terrifying. According to what the being in the coffin said, although they are afraid of Dumbledore holding the Elder Wand, they can definitely fight him. Charles felt a little heavy in his heart. He is very strong now, extremely strong. Ordinary wizards were like playthings in front of him. Even most of the professors at Hogwarts and the so-called elite Aurors of the Ministry of Magic were no exception, but Charles still felt that he was still some distance away from reaching the level of Dumbledore, Grindelwald, and Voldemort, not to mention anything else. Grindelwald's fiery fire curse alone was enough to burn down a small city, and even if Ciel used Storm Calling now, he couldn't match it. This was Grindelwald decades ago, when Dumbledore didn't even have the Elder Wand in his hand. Now, if Dumbledore were to use his full strength, the destructive power he would display would probably be far greater than that of Grindelwald in the past, and Charles would be far from being able to reach that level, and the old monster hidden in Romania is an existence of that level. However, although he was extremely fearful in his heart, Charles did not show it on his face, and his expression even became more arrogant when he didn't have enough deduction points. He chose to deduce the apparition first. Why? Isn't it just about being able to escape at times like this? Looking at the red light in the shadow, Charles' face showed a crazy expression. "Old man, you're already lying on the bed and you're still restless. Do you want to get out? Then I'll have to weld the lid of your coffin shut. Eh? Spell fight, huh? Come on, watch me cast a spell." Immediately, the mithril wand in Charles' hand burst out with dazzling green light. The unforgivable curse came out of Charles' mouth very smoothly. Avada Kedavra. When hearing the curse, the being in the coffin was startled. A death curse? Even though he was in the coffin, he had heard of this famous spell and had his servants perform it for him. Regarding this spell, he could only say that just like the dragon language magic of the ancient dragons that once amazed an era, the killing curse, a spell with instant death attributes, was also a masterpiece of this era, a pure work of a madman. Whenever a wizard of the same level or one level weaker than him casts this spell, he has to be extremely careful to make sure he is not hit, otherwise he will be in real trouble. But how could a young wizard like Charles have such a strong desire to kill that he could use the killing curse without any hesitation? I haven't paid attention to the outside world for a few years, and the magical world has become like this? And just as Charles chanted the killing curse, a dazzling green light swept out from the tip of the staff like a tide, drowning everything in front. Seeing this scene, the being in the coffin felt his scalp tingling. Is this a killing curse? Isn't the killing curse a single target spell? When did it become a ranged spell? Who taught Ciel to cast the killing curse like this? The Ministry of Magic should keep him in Azkaban until he dies. Then, thinking of Ciel's previous extremely weird and unstoppable marking magic, the being in the coffin felt a little empty in his heart. He dared not underestimate Charles's curse anymore. What if this outrageous killing curse is as strange and unpredictable as the previous one, and cannot be blocked or avoided at all? Immediately, the spell that was ready to be cast in the coffin paused, and the being concentrated on preparing to deal with this killing curse. But just when his bloody spell paused, a playful look appeared on Charles' face. He really didn't know how to cast the Kedavra spell. The Avada Kedavra spell was just a prelude to long-distance apparition, and it was quite effective in confusing powerful enemies. As for the green light that swept across like a tide, it was merely the application of the fluorescent spell. With Ciel's mastery of the fluorescent spell, doing this is easier than eating or drinking, but the combination of the two successfully allowed the being in the coffin to interrupt its dangerous magic, buying Ciel time to apparate over a long distance. So when the being in the coffin was still concentrating on guarding against a killing curse, a smile appeared on Charles' lips. With a loud bang, his figure disappeared from the spot on the shadow that appeared in Nocturne Alley. The being in the coffin was stunned for a moment before realizing that he had been tricked. What is the killing curse? I was just stalling for time. But I ended up getting cheated, being teased and humiliated time and again by an 11-year-old wizard really broke the defenses of this self-proclaimed ancient and noble being. Dumbledore, look at what you taught. The sea of blood was surging and the bone dragon was roaring. Little wizard, just wait for me, just wait for me. At the same time, Charles' figure appeared in a forest after confirming that he was no longer being targeted by the being in the sea of blood. Charles breathed a sigh of relief. It will be really troublesome if we get caught up again. Even though this old guy doesn't seem to be very smart, his strength is unquestionable even from such a distance. He was able to reveal his shadow through the marks left on the vampire lord's servants, and even cast powerful magic from a distance. This also served as a reminder to Charles, there are so-called ancients and great old ones in the magic world. With a mysterious place like Arliet, it's normal for there to be more ancient beings in other places. I thought I was already very strong, but now it seems that the strong strength in the original book may not be enough to dominate the magic world. Thinking of the sea of dragon blood and the mountain of dragon bones, Charles felt his eyes brimming with envy. How many deduction points does that require? It's a pity that I'm not strong enough, otherwise I could just apper it over and demolish it, and that would be a huge bounty. He took a deep breath, his eyes showing determination. I prefer to take the initiative rather than letting that old monster come out of the coffin. We still need to improve our strength. Then, Charles concentrated on thinking. Although he had no idea of his identity and origin when dealing with that old monster this time, Charles could be sure of one thing: he was definitely not a good person. Just from the sea of dragon blood and the several types of magic displayed by the other party, it can be seen that the magic is most likely related to blood, controlling death, etc. In addition, with the vampire lord as his servant, sleeping in the coffin, a guess gradually emerged in Charles' mind. This old monster might also be a vampire. Even if it's not, it still belongs to the category of dark creatures, and has nothing to do with light, holiness, or anything like that. In that case, Ciel's thoughts finally fell on the clean ground spell that made him invincible against ordinary wizards. This spell was derived from the expelling spell against dark creatures and dark wizards. If it is further deduced, it should have a stronger effect against dark creatures at the same time. Ciel also remembered the patroness charm that he had obtained a long time ago, but had never had the extra points to deduce in terms of restraining dark creatures. The patroness charm is even better than the exorcist charm and is almost the highest representative of sacred magic in the original work. Charles' eyes showed anticipation. The original patroness charm is very effective against dark creatures and is the only means to deal with dementors. So if he and Deep Blue work together to deduce it, to what heights will it be pushed? The next moment, Charles said decisively in his mind, Deep Blue, the Pure Land spell, the Patroness spell, keep on deducing in the direction of the dark creatures. Chapter 68, Dust-Free Land, Sacred Country. Following the orders given by Charles in his mind, Deep Blue began to deduce tirelessly. The first thing to change was the Dustless Land, which had made great contributions to Charles. This spell was derived from the Banishing spell. It has the effect of banishing magic from wizards and has always been ineffective, but this time, facing the existence in the Dragon Blood Sea, the Dustless Land was completely useless. Firstly, the two sides were actually thousands of miles apart, but the other party used some kind of magic to appear as a phantom in front of Charles. Apart from being able to lock onto the opponent's space-time mark in time and space, Ciel has no magic that can span such a long distance. In addition, after feeling the strength of the magic power of that existence, Charles suspected that even if he was face-to-face with the other party, it would most likely not be effective if he cast a spell on the clean land. After all, although the magic banning effect of the Dustless Land is overbearing, it still depends on the magic strength of Charles and the opponent facing those previous black wizards. The difference in magic power was not that big. The Dustless Land curse was unsolvable and could extremely domineeringly prohibit the opponent from using magic in the area, but to ban the magic power in the Blood Sea is like trying to put out a fire with a bucket of water, which is really impossible. There is even a high probability that even the opponent's magic defense cannot be broken. Therefore, in order to be effective when facing opponents of this level, it is imperative to continue to deduce the Dustless Land. The direction that Charles chose for his deduction this time was to further strengthen the special targeting effect of the Dustless Land against dark creatures, which can be regarded as a return to the source of the Dustless Land curse. Soon, in Charles' mind, a steady stream of knowledge about the expulsion spell and the Dustless Land spell flooded into his mind to target dark creatures. The most effective magic is naturally holy magic. The previous Dustless Land was filled with magic with the attributes of Charles. which excluded the magic of other wizards and achieved the effect of banning magic. And now, while maintaining its original properties, the magic power in the Dustless Land is gradually transforming towards the direction of sacred magic power. After a moment, a deep blue prompt sounded. The 3 deductions of the Dustless Land curse have been completed, and the host has obtained the Holy Land curse. After casting this spell, a field filled with holy magic will be formed around the host. Dark creatures that step into it will continue to be burned, and their magical protection and spell strength will be weakened by the holy field. Wizards who enter here will be prohibited from casting spells until they adapt to the divine magic, unless they use wand cores such as unicorn mane and phoenix feathers that also have divine magic power. Following this reminder, Ciel slowly waved his wand. The silver-white holy light shone and spread from the tip of the magic wand, forming a silver field with Ciel as the center, like moonlight shining on the earth. The nature and appearance of this magic is very similar to the silver smoke of the patroness charm. Charles could feel that when he was there, his mood became calm and relaxed, as if no evil would disturb anything there. If any evil dares to step in here, it will face the burning of holy magic, and its dark magic will be greatly weakened by the holy realm. Looking at the entire wizarding world, this is also an extremely excellent protective spell against the dark arts. Being in the sacred realm, a first-year Hogwarts student could probably beat werewolves, vampires and the like with spells like teeth like bludgeons, but Charles showed obvious dissatisfaction with the results of the 3 deductions. Weak, too weak. Can such weak magic be called sacred? Just like the patroness charm, it can only drive away dark creatures but cannot destroy them directly. This kind of sacred magic is not what I want. Simply driving away the darkness and burning it will only allow it to return to its natural habitat, which is equivalent to encouraging the darkness. Only by destroying darkness, or even taking power from it, can we grow stronger while the darkness diminishes. This is the true meaning of holiness. Deep blue, a little more extreme. Max it out. Max out your holy magic for me. 4 deductions. As Charles whispered, Deep Blue started to work again. More than 1 million deduction points were deducted, and in return a golden and white magical light appeared in front of Charles' eyes. The gold color does not convey any warmth, but instead is icy and cold. It was like the long sword held by the seraph in the myth, and wherever the sword pointed, darkness would be swept away. The sacred domain spell that Charles had cast earlier was also undergoing this transformation. At this moment the originally sacred yet soft silver-white light gradually turned into dazzling golden white. Under this shroud of light, every dark corner was illuminated, leaving no room for darkness to hide. It was cold and powerful, like countless blades, ruthlessly tearing apart the darkness and turning it into nutrients for its own battle. When the entire sacred realm completely turned golden and white, the deep blue reminder sounded again in Charles' mind. The 4th deduction of the Dustless Land curse is completed, and the host obtains the Holy Country curse. The Holy Kingdom is like the kingdom of God in mythology. Sin and darkness have no place to stay. The effect of dark attribute magic is greatly improved. Any dark magic that enters the Holy Kingdom will suffer a devastating blow from the holy magic. Darkness attributed defensive magic will be penetrated by holy magic. Darkness attributed offensive magic will be crushed by holy magic. The damage suffered by dark creatures in the Holy Kingdom is subject to a lifelong ban on healing. Unless their own magic power is converted into holy, it cannot be restored in any way. Every time the Holy Kingdom destroys a dark creature, the holy magic within it will become purer and more powerful, and the range covered by the Holy Kingdom's curse will also increase accordingly. When he heard this information, a look of joy appeared on Charles' face. This is the direction he hopes the Dustless Land will transform into. The ultimate sacredness, the ultimate domineering. Even the power of this Holy Kingdom spell exceeded Charles' expectations. Not only does it have the effect of breaking dark magic, it can also impose a lifetime ban on healing. In this way, even if a dark creature or dark wizard tries his best to escape from the sacred kingdom of the Shire, he will never be able to recover and will only become weaker and weaker. If you cannot threaten Charles once, you will never be able to threaten Charles again. This characteristic alone is already exaggerated, but in Charles' opinion, the most powerful characteristic of the Holy Kingdom is the last one. With each dark creature destroyed, the sacred magic of the Holy Kingdom spell becomes purer and more powerful. This means that as long as there are enough dark creatures to kill them, the power of this spell can grow infinitely. Ciel took a deep breath. If it could continue to grow like this, perhaps the Holy Kingdom curse could truly become the kingdom of God on earth as described in mythology, covering the entire continent. By then, what would that coffin in the sea of dragon blood mean? Die to me. Just when Ciel was extremely satisfied with the power of the Holy Kingdom spell, Deep Blue sounded another reminder. The host has obtained high-level materials related to the sacred spell. The host has obtained advanced materials related to the patronus spell. The points required to deduce the patronus spell in the future will be greatly reduced, should we deduce the patronus charm. Hearing this hint, Charles showed a look of surprise, and then he suddenly realized the source of the dustless land and the Holy Kingdom is actually the expulsion spell. The expelling spell and the patronus spell are both spells of divine magic, and there is a very close connection between the two. In the process of deducing the Holy Kingdom, the holy magic power has been deduced to golden and white form. If the patronus spell is deduced in this direction, the points required will naturally decrease. At the same time, Charles' eyes revealed some thoughts. Since the banishing charm and the patronus charm are closely related, would the derivative spells derived from the two also have some connection? The Holy Kingdom can be said to be the ultimate range of holy magic. When it reaches its end, it can become an existence like the kingdom of God on earth, but it seemed like something was missing since it is a sacred country. How can there be no God in it? Does that still count as the kingdom of God? The image summoned by the patronus spell is the manifestation of the caster's mind. If we extrapolate to a certain extent, why can't this become a legendary god? Charles' eyes lit up. His intuition told him that the deduction of the patronus spell would produce an astonishing synergy with the Holy Kingdom. The next moment, Charles made a decision. Deep Blue, give me 5 renditions of the patronus charm. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 69. If I have to have a patron saint, I choose myself. The words that were whispered softly in his mind instantly stirred up a storm of holy magic around Charles. The patronus charm, an ancient and powerful sacred magic, is something that most wizards in the magical world cannot even master in their lifetime. But now it is taking root in Ciel's mind at an astonishing speed and bearing abundant fruit in a short while. The current version of the patronus charm in the wizarding world had become Ciel's instinct. Waving the mithril wand, Charles chanted the patronus charm, call the gods to protect you. At this moment, Charles was thinking about the happy times he had in Arlia. The green sun, black ocean and beach made him so happy. The patronus charm, which requires kindness and happy emotions, was successfully cast by Charles without any surprise. A silver-white strange beast gushed out from the tip of Charles's wand. When he saw this strange beast, Charles frowned slightly, a look of confusion on his face. What the hell is this? This strange beast has a human face and a sheep's body, eyes under its armpits, tiger teeth and human claws. At first glance, it doesn't look like a good creature, and is completely different from the patron saint in the original book that Charles had seen. If he had to describe it, Charles felt that it was like the TOD in the legend of his previous life, symbolizing an insatiable appetite. According to the records of the magic world, the patronus charm reflects the inner state of the caster. For example, Snape's patronus is a stag, the same as Lily's, which represents his everlasting love for Lily. Dumbledore's patronus is the phoenix, which symbolizes purity and life, as well as Dumbledore's determination to fight evil. But my patronus is TOD? What does that mean? Does it mean that I am greedy? Charles' frown deepened. Slander. Isn't this pure slander? I just eat a little more than others. I'm still a child, still growing. It's normal to eat more. How can it be related to TOD? But after a moment, Charles' frown relaxed a little. The deduction is still ongoing. Let's wait and see. Perhaps there will be changes at the same time. In the Deep Blue system, the deduction of the patronus spell was still proceeding at a terrifying frequency. Every minute and every second is equivalent to the lifelong efforts of countless talented wizards. What followed was an almost miraculous improvement in the ancient patronus charm. The first is the significant relaxation of the casting conditions. Ciel had always been critical of the casting conditions of the patronus charm since his previous life. Generally speaking, when releasing the patronus charm, one encounters dark creatures such as dementors. Most of these creatures can affect people's emotions and make them feel negative and pessimistic. I was already under the influence of the enemy, and the only spell that could effectively fight the enemy was to remain optimistic. This is too harsh. Even though Harry Potter in the original book had practiced a patronus, He still found it difficult to successfully release it when facing Dementors in the first few actual combat situations. Even in the 7th year of school in the original book, Harry Potter had grown a lot. However, when facing a large group of Dementors, it is very difficult to cast a spell successfully without the help of companions. Although he could understand that the magic in this world was more idealistic and had higher requirements on one's mentality, Charles could not accept such uncontrollable casting conditions at all. What if he took a potion that could keep a cool head and clear mind in order to enhance his combat capabilities, thus significantly reducing his mood swings? Or if his consciousness began to fade after being injured, would he no longer be able to use this spell? Therefore, the first miracle created by the Patronus charm was the elimination of the psychological demand for positivity and happiness. Although the price is an increase in the magic strength requirement for the caster, in Charles' opinion, spellcasting stability is above all else, and the price is completely worth it. Next comes another aspect of the Patronus charm that was criticized by Ciel. This thing is purely for protecting itself and expelling dark creatures. Even though the Patronus power far exceeds that of ordinary dark creatures and lone Dementors, it can only drive them away but cannot destroy them. In the 3rd year of the original book, during the Hogwarts Quidditch game, a large number of Dementors appeared on the sidelines. Causing great panic, Dumbledore summoned his own Patronus in anger, and a huge phoenix made a magnificent appearance. But even Dumbledore's Patronus could only drive away the Dementors. In Charles' opinion, this is still too gentle. Do you understand that we must eradicate all evil? I don't know who first developed the Patronus charm. It's too pedantic. You must know that killing is to protect the Tau, and eliminating karma does not mean killing people. Eliminating darkness is the best protection. Therefore, under Deep Blue's deduction, the Patronus spell changed a second time. It was no longer just to expel the dark creatures, but to destroy them. The gluttonous guardian god summoned by Charles had a cold and fierce light in his silver-white eyes, revealing his vicious nature. If there were any dark creatures in front of him, the Teoti guardian god would probably eat them alive. When Charles looked at the Teoti guardian god, he felt that he liked it a lot more. But it's not enough. How can such a weak divine magic power destroy the darkness? And this size, how big is it? If you encounter a powerful dark creature, are you going to go up and gnaw on its feet? Deep Blue, increase the power to its maximum and increase the size to its maximum. Following Ciel's words, Deep Blue continued to deduce at a very fast speed. To make such a huge change to the ancient Patronus charm is like directly replacing a spell. Any wizard would be overwhelmed when seeing such a project, but in Deep Blue, as long as the deduction points are enough, every second is a miracle. In an instant, the silver-white magic power on the surface of the Teoti guardian god turned into the same platinum magic power that Charles had used when he released a Holy Kingdom spell cold, sacred, indifferent, like the edge of a sword. Not only that, the body of the Teoti guardian god, which was originally less than 2 people tall, began to expand continuously. 3 meters, 5 meters, 10 meters, it grew to a full 15 meters high, much larger than the ancient Cheryl dragon form. Before the Teoti guardian god stopped growing, but now, its body is glowing with platinum light, and huge muscles are bulging. The sharp claws and teeth are as sharp as swords, spears and halberds. No matter what dark creature appears in front of this patron saint, whether it is a werewolf, a vampire, or a Dementor, it will probably be trampled into pieces in the next second and then eaten cleanly. Logically speaking, the deduction to this point has barely met Charles' psychological expectations. The next step is to try to cast the Holy Kingdom spell and the transformed Patronus spell at the same time, but Charles did not move for a long time. Instead, he looked hesitant as he looked at the mighty and majestic Teoti guardian god in front of him. Can this really represent one's inner self? Is it just greed? After a moment, Ciel shook his head and raised his wand. I am not satisfied with this Patronus. I have devoured countless things, not because I am simply greedy, but because I don't believe in anything in this world. Love, friendship, peace, justice. I don't believe in any of them. Dumbledore? Voldemort? Grindelwald? I don't feel safe with any of them. Even if he kneels down to the so-called old ones like Dark and enters the sublime level, I still don't think he is reliable. The only person I can trust in this world is myself. Grabbing everything and strengthening myself is my creed. For this reason, peace or war, justice or evil, as long as it is beneficial to me, I will do whatever it takes, even if it destroys the so-called original plot and the original destiny. So what? I don't believe in these things. I don't believe in fate. I only believe in myself. Ciel's wand pointed at the patron saint of Teoti. As for you, Teo the Guardian God, I also don't believe you. How can a ferocious beast from the legend of the previous life become my guardian god, and how can it protect me? If I have to have a patron saint, I choose myself. The 4 updates together have already totaled 10,000 words, and the next ones will be additional updates if I am in good health in the future. I will guarantee to write 10,000 words every day, and update more depending on my health. Thank you all readers for your support. Chapter 70 I am the only god, indescribable. Fudge has another idea. As Charles made this decision, the platinum-colored Teo the Guardian God collapsed instantly. At the same time, Deep Blue's 5th deduction of the patroness spell was completed according to Charles' idea. A mechanical reminder sounded in Ciel's mind. The 5th deduction of the patroness spell is completed. The host has obtained the sacred spell, the I am God spell. This spell is based on the patroness spell, but the concept has been fundamentally changed. The patroness charm is to call upon an animal or magical creature that is the manifestation of one's mind to drive away darkness. The mantra of only I as a god is to make myself a god. The next moment, at the place where the Teo the Guardian God disappeared, a silent and indescribable existence emitting a platinum-colored light emerged. When Charles saw this image, he was shocked. It was a huge, indescribable figure shrouded in platinum light, emitting a sacred and cold aura. Most of his body was still enveloped in platinum-colored light and had not yet truly manifested, but the parts that were revealed were already terrifying. First, tentacles shrouded in holy light were dancing. The end of the tentacle seemed to be a mass of amorphous flesh and blood, and in the center of the flesh and blood grew Charles's huge face amidst the dancing tentacles. Half of a body that looked like an ancient dragon extended out, with a huge dragon head overlooking the area below. Aside from the fact that its entire body scales were covered in platinum, it was exactly the same as Ciel's animagus ancient dragon form. Next to the ancient dragon's body, there were apparently 2 empty spaces waiting to be filled, and those parts that have not yet manifested seem to be able to reveal more of their bodies in the future. Such an existence cannot be described by human words. It does not belong to any known creature in this world. It is simply like an evil god. Charles stared blankly at his new patroness, and when he met its gaze, a look of bewilderment appeared on his face. Is this the result of Deep Blue's 5 deductions of the patroness spell, the only god spell? How could this be? It's true, Charles' eyes showed ecstasy. It hits my aesthetic too hard. These tentacles, this amorphous platinum flesh, the hideous ancient dragon body, and the unknown hidden under the platinum light. Beautiful, so beautiful. At this moment, the Deep Blue mechanical prompt sound continued to sound, introducing information about the only god spell. The mantra of the only god I worship deifies myself as a god, and the image summoned is the manifestation of the host's deepest inner heart. In a sense, he can be regarded as the sanctified substitute of the host. Therefore, he and the host are in perfect sync and have a complete understanding. During battle, he will cooperate with the host without any manipulation. At the same time, he also inherited all the abilities of the host in all forms, even the dragon language magic and the animagus state. These spells will be converted into the purest and most domineering divine magic to be released. Just seeing these, Charles couldn't suppress the ecstasy on his face. Compared to the Teo summoned by the patroness spell, the one and only god spell is undoubtedly an epic improvement for Charles. All magic can be released with the most extreme sacred magic power by the image summoned by the spell of the supreme god. This means that the eternal blazing sun curse and the lightless sun curse, which are already natural enemies of dark creatures, will increase their lethality to dark creatures exponentially. There is also Charles' most powerful killing magic at present, Storm Call in the ancient dragon form, which will be converted into a sacred attribute and set off a sacred storm. These improvements in dealing with dark creatures and dark wizards are so much stronger than before. Now, if Charles were to face the existence in the Dragon Blood Sea again, and if it was just magic used through its phantoms, Charles would be completely immune after using the spell of only I am a god. A holy dragon's roar can directly shatter it into pieces. Why would he need to use the apparition to escape like before? Even if he went to the Dragon Blood Sea to face that existence face to face, Charles felt more confident. What's more, the Deep Blue prompt sound hasn't even ended yet. At the end of the introduction of the only self-exalted god spell, similar characteristics to the previous Holy Kingdom spell were also mentioned. The more dark creatures you destroy, the more powerful the sacred magic of the only god spell will become. Using the Sacred Kingdom spell and the I am the only god spell at the same time, the power of both spells will increase dramatically. Charles took a deep breath. his eyes filled with eagerness to try. He had been thinking before that, given the close connection between the expulsion charm and the patronus charm, the spells derived from the two should also be related. Only I honor God and the sacred kingdom. In nature, the two are complementary. Sure enough, Deep Blue also gave a hint that if two spells were released at the same time, their power would continue to increase immediately. Ciel waved his wand again without hesitation. A platinum-colored field spread out from the tip of the magic wand, covering both Ciel and the image summoned by the solemn god spell. It was the Holy Kingdom spell, and when the two closely related spells came into contact, the platinum-colored sacred magic power suddenly became so bright that it was blinding and almost impossible to look directly at. Just being illuminated by this light, ordinary dark creatures would probably be reduced to ashes, and in the sacred realm, it is even more terrifying. The dazzling sacred magic power sweeps through every corner like a flame, and is also entangled in the spell of Only I Am a God, causing its every move to stir up a transparent platinum-colored sacred flame. Charles looked at the one and only God curse, and he seemed to know what Charles wanted him to do. The platinum-colored head of the ancient dragon roared towards the sky, spewing out a roar of power. In an instant, the brilliant sacred magic power turned into an impact, carrying with it the platinum-colored sacred flame, sweeping across nearly 100 meters in front. Seeing this scene, Charles' eyes were filled with shock. This kind of targeting of dark magic has little effect on wizards like Dumbledore, but it can make dark wizards and dark creatures, even Voldemort or the beings in the Sea of Blood, suffer. And this is under the premise that the dark creatures are not eliminated. As long as enough dark creatures are eliminated, the power of the two sacred spells can be increased. Ciel couldn't help but lick his lips. The dragon's blood sea in Romania was too tempting for him, especially this time. In order to target the existence in the Sea of Blood, Charles also spent a lot of deduction points, which all in all exceeded tens of millions. Having invested so much, he was naturally determined to obtain that Sea of Blood. If we don't eat all the mud under the Sea of Blood, it would be a shame for Charles to put in so much effort. But although there are many dark creatures in the magical world, there are not many. If you want to continuously enhance the power of the Sacred Kingdom spell and the Sovereign God spell, you will need quite a few dark creatures, and they have to be relatively concentrated. Otherwise, they'll be scattered all over the place, and it'll be hard to find them. Also, they have to have strong reproductive capacity. Otherwise, if you kill them, they will become extinct in a short time, which cannot be sustainable development. Ciel pondered in his mind. Werewolves and vampires seem to be dark creatures that can be mass-produced, which meets my requirements, but if we mass-produce them, it will probably cause public outrage in the wizarding world. Even Dumbledore will not turn a blind eye and will take action. It's obvious that the being in the Sea of Blood won't be able to get out for a while, and Voldemort is also in a disabled state. Even if we fight, I'm not afraid based on the results of this deduction, but Dumbledore is holding the Elder Wand. He is truly unfathomable. The old man in the Sea of Blood is very afraid of him when he mentions him. Perhaps their influence is limited to Romania, and they have not continued to expand their dragon farms to other places because of Dumbledore's intimidation. There is no particularly huge benefit, so I'd better try not to fall out with Dumbledore. But besides this, is there any other way to create a large number of dark creatures? Just as Charles was thinking about where to find a dark creature that met the requirements inside the Ministry of Magic, Fudge was giving a speech with spit flying all over his face. We are very close to enrolling in Hogwarts, and we are also very close to collecting evidence and exposing Dumbledore's true identity. Once we have dealt with Dumbledore, without him messing around behind our backs, our position will be as secure as a rock. Not only that, with the aura of suppressing the most powerful wizard of this century, who in the wizarding world dares to disobey my orders, the feat that will go down in history will be accomplished in our hands. Then Fudge showed a photo in his office. The photo shows the scene where Charles was chasing the group of wizards who were trying to steal the materials for the fire dragon. It can be seen from the photo that a forest has been completely burned to ashes, and there is not even any trace of the wizards at the scene, so it is impossible to determine who did it. But Fudge sneered at this. The person who did this thought he was very clever, but he was only trying to cover up his mistake. How many wizards in the magic world can cast such powerful magic? Not to mention that he is directly involved in this matter. The candidate is even more unique. Bill Weasley was seriously injured, and the Weasley family was sad and angry. They seem to be core members of a secret society. The materials for the 10 fire dragons were purchased through Ciel's magic agreement. The loophole in this magic agreement is probably related to that person. All clues point to Dumbledore. Fudge showed a sarcastic look on his face. That gang of thieves thought they were very clever, but they didn't know that the dragon material they stole actually belonged to Dumbledore. They were really too clever for their own good, but thanks to them, we now have one more piece of evidence against Dumbledore. Seeing how Dumbledore is so crazy about dragon materials, even to the point of killing people himself, it is clear that after Ciel Evans enters school, Dumbledore will definitely intensify his efforts to purchase materials through magical agreements. His loopholes will become bigger and bigger, and his flaws will become more and more. But to defeat him, we still need Ciel's cooperation, an aide said immediately. Then, let's prepare gifts and bribe Charles now. What do you think, Minister? Why don't you buy a new model of Nimbus 2000 flying broom? The little wizard will definitely like it. In response, Fudge shook his head. Don't you know the prestige Dumbledore holds in the hearts of young wizards? No. Slytherin students would be so stupid as to betray Dumbledore just to have a Nimbus 2000 as our spy? You can give me the gift, but you have to wait until you break through Ciel's defenses. We need to plant a deeper fear in his heart. Facing this fear, betraying Dumbledore is acceptable. What do you think this fear will be? Without waiting for his staff to answer, Fudge's eyes showed wisdom. Azkaban, the place that young wizards fear the most. We can find an excuse, such as letting Ciel, the young wizard who was once harmed by dark wizards, see what happened to dark wizards. We can show him the Ministry of Magic's deterrence against dark wizards and ensure the safety of the wizarding world. Then, we can take him to visit Azkaban. In this process, after seeing the Dementors, I believe Ciel will make a wise choice. That's a Dementor. Adult wizards are terrified of it. I don't believe that a little wizard wouldn't be afraid. Add one more chapter. There should be another chapter after 12 o'clock. Thank you for your support. Chapter 71, Dementor Breeding. Is this little wizard too crazy? 2-in-1. At this time, Charles was still in the room worrying about where to find so many dark creatures, but there was a knock on the door. The person knocking on the door was the new Minister of Magic, Fudge. Charles felt surprised to see Fudge. Hogwarts is about to start school, and this is supposedly the busiest time for the Ministry of Magic. After all, there will be a large number of wizard leaks during this period, and a large number of manpower will be needed to cast the confusion spell and the forgetfulness spell. The operation of Platform 9 3/4 also requires manpower to maintain to prevent any leaks along the route of the Hogwarts Express. Why did Fudge come to him during this busiest time? When Charles was surprised, Fudge had already explained his purpose. We are still worried that the incident with the dark wizards will have a negative impact on you, Ciel, and that it will affect your upcoming life at Hogwarts. So a few days before the start of school at Hogwarts, I plan to take you to visit the prison where bad guys are held in the wizarding world. In this way, I believe you will no longer have to worry about the many dark wizards causing trouble in the wizarding world, and you can enjoy your life at Hogwarts without worry. I think you have heard of the name of this prison. Yes, it is Azkaban. When Fudge mentioned Azkaban, it was as if a bolt of lightning struck Charles' mind, as if he had suddenly realized something. His depressed mood due to not being able to find a suitable dark creature for a long time was suddenly cheered up. Yes, Azkaban. How could I have forgotten this place? There are Dementors here. Dementors, these notorious dark creatures, survive by sucking the hope and happiness of human beings. It can even suck out human souls, turning them into the walking dead in the minds of almost all wizards. Dark creatures like Dementors are considered the most filthy, disgusting and terrifying, but in Charles' opinion, the characteristics of Dementors are quite rare. First, while there has been little research on Dementors' reproduction, it is known that they do not have an ordinary reproductive process. Even if there is only one Dementor, if it absorbs enough hope and happiness, soon there will be a group of Dementors. In the original book, there were not many Dementors in order to capture Sirius Black in the 3rd year. A large number of Dementors from Azkaban were transferred to Hogwarts, but the number was only a few dozen at most. But when Voldemort rose to power, Dementors could move freely, absorbing hope and happiness everywhere. Their numbers immediately increased exponentially, with dozens or even hundreds of them appearing each time, and even the despair and coldness they brought would condense into gray mist. This ability to reproduce rapidly is exactly what the Charles needs. As long as there is one Dementor, Charles can breed hundreds or thousands of Dementors and use them as nutrients for the Sovereign Lord spell and the Holy Kingdom spell. Moreover, compared to vampires and werewolves, Dementors are undoubtedly much more evil. Although vampires and werewolves are discriminated against and are considered dark creatures, not all of them are malicious. Vampires can become rock singers, werewolves can become Hogwarts professors, and they can even use the Patronus charm out of good intentions. But Dementors are pure evil, standing completely in opposition to human happiness and hope, eager to extract human souls. This is an inherently evil creature, and even Hagrid, who likes dangerous animals, hates it. If such evil dark creatures could be destroyed by the Holy Kingdom spell and the One God spell, it would be of great benefit to the sacred magic within them. Fudge's mention of Azkaban made Charles' heart move. As a prison for the wizarding world, this is an isolated island that few people from the Ministry of Magic ever enter, and everything is taken care of by Dementors. This place cannot even be marked on the map, and only a few high-ranking officials from the Ministry of Magic can enter to visit. Isn't this a great Dementor breeding base? Exclamation mark. If Dementors could be bred here, then Charles would have access to a constant supply of nutrients, and the sacred spell would be elevated to an unimaginable and terrifying level. Even if the Dementors can produce some magical materials, Charles can also obtain a large number of deduction points here. Thinking of this, Charles could no longer suppress his excitement. He looked at Fudge and said impatiently, "Azkaban, Minister, please take me there quickly. I can't wait to see what it looks like there." Seeing Charles's reaction, Fudge was stunned for a moment, then a smile appeared on his lips. This is the little wizard who was born into Muggle family. He has never seen the world and has no idea what fear is. Azkaban is a place that everyone in the wizarding world is afraid of, but Ciel actually seems to be looking forward to it. Haha, when he sees the Dementors later, I believe Charles will realize how wrong he was. That's good. This way, Azkaban will leave an indelible impression in Charles' mind. When the time comes that he needs Charles to backstab Dumbledore, he can just threaten him with Azkaban, and I believe this little wizard will definitely do as he says. Immediately, Fudge's smile widened, and he pulled Charles and said, "Okay, I'll take you there then." Then, Fudge apparated and brought Charles to the coast of the North Sea. Just by coming here, you can feel the pollution and heaviness of the air. The sea breeze blowing in my face was so gloomy. The surging waves in the sea were like monsters ready to devour people, and a small island shrouded in dark clouds was looming in the distance. Once I looked up, all the good mood of the day seemed to disappear without a trace. That was Azkaban, which was enchanted with powerful magic to prevent apparition. Even Fudge, the Minister of Magic, could only bring people in via the Ministry of Magic's special ship. Soon, Fudge took Charles on board a ship. As the oars moved on their own, they gradually approached Azkaban. Before reaching the shore, what came into view was a tall, skinny creature wearing a black cloak and exuding a cold and desperate aura. This is the Dementor that is feared by the wizarding world. As they appeared, the air on the boat became cold and desperate. Fudge said to Charles with a half smile on his lips, "See? That's the Dementor, isn't it really scary?" Ciel lowered his head and whispered yes. Seeing Charles's performance, Fudge smiled even more and patted his shoulder as if to comfort him. "But don't worry too much. Those who are sent to Azkaban are all extremely heinous murderers, swindlers, dark wizards, and ambitious people. Ciel, I don't think a young wizard like you would associate with such a being, right? Even if it is, it must be deceived. The magic world is very lenient towards young wizards. If you are involved in any conspiracy in the future, as long as you help the Ministry of Magic maintain fairness and justice, such punishment will not fall on you. Do you understand?" As Fudge spoke, the boat moved closer and closer to Azkaban, and closer to the Dementors. Charles lowered his head, his body shaking more and more violently, and he continued to lower his head in response. Fudge was very satisfied with Charles' performance. Isn't that what happened to the little wizard when he first saw the Dementors? He was so scared that he trembled all over and couldn't say a word. I believe that this time, Azkaban must have left a deep impression on Charles, and Charles will be afraid of this place even in his dreams. Fudge showed a smug look on his face, and he controlled the boat to sail away from the coast of Azkaban and brought Charles back to the leaky cauldron. After giving Charles a few chocolates, Fudge returned to the Minister of Magic's office. Amid the concerned gazes of his staff, Fudge announced the good news: "I have successfully broken down the psychological defenses of this child, Ciel. Next time I mention Azkaban, I think he'll do anything to avoid it, even backstabbing Dumbledore. It seems that expelling Dumbledore is almost certain." At the same time, as soon as Fudge left Charles' sight, Charles swallowed the chocolate that Fudge handed to him along with the wrapper, and the burning look in his eyes could no longer be tolerated. I almost couldn't help it. Dementors are great food for my 2 holy spells. If Fudge brings me any closer, I won't be able to resist taking action, but Now, the time and space mark has been placed on Azkaban. Ciel licked his lips. The time to reap the harvest has arrived. The magic set up in Azkaban to prevent disapparition can prevent wizards from disapparating, but it cannot prevent goblins, not to mention that Charles can use both wizard and goblin channels to apparate at the same time. Following the time and space markings, accompanied by a loud bang, Charles apparated directly to the coast of Azkaban that he had seen before. The Dementors on the coast had not yet dispersed. The order they had received previously was to cooperate with the Minister of Magic, and when the Minister of Magic's boat appeared, they were to appear on the shore. At this moment, a loud bang was heard on the coast, which stunned the Dementors when they saw Charles. They were even more stunned. Isn't that the little wizard who just approached with the Minister of Magic? Why is he here alone? After a moment's hesitation, several Dementors floated towards Ciel at the same time. A chilling sound was heard. The air around became icy cold, as if even people's bodies were frozen along with it. Various happy and hopeful memories passed away from Ciel's mind. The Dementors are going to feast on these delights. They greedily sniffed the rich and fresh joy of Charles, the joy of receiving prize money after winning a competition, the joy of improving skills and knowledge. It's so good and fresh. It's much better than the many dark wizards in Azkaban who are about to become zombies at this moment. Another wave of happiness overflowed. The Dementors absorbed it greedily. Then they froze. This, what is this? A place with a green sun and a black sea, full of weirdness and madness. Charles was chewing on rocks and drinking seawater there, exuding such a strong sense of happiness. Also, Charles was gnawing on the indescribable tentacles. The ominousness and madness emanating from the tentacles made the Dementors shudder when they saw it through their memories. But when Charles was gnawing on the tentacles, he felt incomparable happiness. This confused the Dementors. They looked at Charles in horror. What's going on with this little wizard? Crazy? Can this make you happy? How could this little wizard have the guts to do such a thing? This is too crazy. Until the next moment, the Dementor closest to Ciel smelled the strong emotion of joy that Ciel was emitting. So many Dementors. They look so delicious. I'm hungry. I want to eat some. The moment the Dementor sensed this emotion, its cloak fluttered. Cluck, cluck, cluck. The Dementor's frightened voice came from under the cloak. It felt that something terrifying was coming, so it turned around and wanted to fly away. Just at this moment, platinum-colored tentacles formed above Charles. The indescribable image summoned by the exalted god spell swept up the Dementor that was trying to escape in front of Charles. Tentacles were tearing, ancient dragons were biting, and Charles's face on an indescribable shape was also chewing. In the blink of an eye, the Dementors disappeared. The other Dementors seemed to have just woken up from their dream. There was a loud cackling sound and they wanted to escape far away like crazy, to stay away from this unknown monster in front of them. But the platinum-colored tentacles precisely wrapped around their cloaks and sent them towards the mouth of that indescribable being. Click, click, as these Dementors were devoured. The sacred power of both the Almighty God spell and the Holy Kingdom spell seemed to be enhanced. The sacred magic of platinum color became more and more dazzling, making it impossible to look directly at it. What made Charles most ecstatic was the deep blue reminder sound in his mind. The host devoured the Dementor and gained 10,000 deduction points. The host devoured the Dementor and gained 10,000 deduction points, only. Then did Ciel remember that when deducing the solemnity spell, Deep Blue mentioned that the core concept of the solemnity spell was to deify oneself. The image summoned by this spell can be said to be another Ciel in this case. The things that are swallowed by the one and only God spell are naturally equivalent to being swallowed by Charles, and will also provide deduction points. Just like when Ciel eats food in an imagus form, he can also gain deduction points. This made Charles look at Azkaban as if he was looking at a great place full of delicacies. Not only can they enhance sacred spells, but they can also provide deduction points. In Charles' eyes, each of the Dementors looks pretty and cute. Then, Charles waved his wand, dispelling the Holy Kingdom and the Sovereign spell, and walked impatiently towards the depths of Azkaban Island. Anyone? There cute Dementor uncles. I'm so happy. I'm so happy. Is there a Dementor uncle? Here is a very happy, helpless and weak little wizard. Yesterday, I promised to add another chapter in the early morning, but I was not feeling well and did not finish it. This chapter is 2 chapters in one, making up for yesterday's extra chapter. I still need 8,000 words today. Chapter 72 Dementors request support. We are protected animals. 2 in 1. The dark island of Azkaban is covered with jagged rocks and dark clouds. There is a gloomy wind blowing here all year round, and there is no trace of sunshine. There was no trace of green on the island except for some dead, black branches that stretched toward the sky like dead people's hands. It seemed that all life had disappeared from the island, leaving only deathly silence. But on such an island, a handsome little wizard was walking enthusiastically among the rugged rocks. As they walked, they laughed and shouted happily, "Uncle Dementor, I'm so happy to see you. Come here quickly." This little wizard is naturally Charles. This was already the second hour since he had arrived in Azkaban. In the past hour, the happy aura he exuded had attracted more than a dozen Dementors for him. After all, in Azkaban, not only the prisoners are miserable, but the Dementors are also miserable. All he could do was suck the pleasure out of these prisoners all day to survive. But the prisoners are about to suffer mental breakdown in Azkaban, so how can they be happy? Naturally, all the Dementors can eat are some leftovers. If the Ministry of Magic had not tacitly allowed Dementors to kiss some prisoners without any identity background and directly devour their souls to fill their stomachs, I'm afraid the Dementors would have rioted long ago due to hunger. In this situation, a young, lively, energetic and happy little wizard like Charles is simply an irresistible delicacy for the Dementors. The dozen or so Dementors were hooked over by Charles without any hesitation as for its end. There is naturally no need to say more. It made the divine magic power of the only god spell and the holy country spell even more golden and dazzling, and also increased Charles' deduction points by more than 100,000. However, it had been quite some time since his last successful fishing trip, and Charles had never encountered any wandering Dementors again, as if they had all avoided the direction where Charles was. This made Ciel frown. Could it be that my fishing method has been discovered? Oh, yes, it's quite normal. After all, Dementors are intelligent creatures. They can understand the instructions of wizards and do the job of jailers. In the 7th year of the original book, they can even serve as an interrogation team in the court. The dozen or so Dementors I caught are not a small number in Azkaban, so it's not surprising that they were reacted to. At the same time, in the fortress in the center of Azkaban Island, Dementors gathered from all directions of the island, with as many as 50 or 60 of them. But at this moment, the Dementors, who had always been a source of fear to wizards, suddenly exuded an aura of fear. Several Dementors made gurgling noises beneath their cloaks, as if describing what they saw. They saw with their own eyes a little wizard walking around the island of Azkaban, calling out to the Dementors. But when the Dementors approach, they will be rolled up by a terrifying existence and then swallowed up. If they hadn't been so slow and didn't move over so quickly, they would have become one of the Dementors being eaten. As they described, an atmosphere of panic spread among the Dementors. It was not until an exceptionally tall Dementor, nearly 5 meters tall, appeared that the rest of the Dementors calmed down. This creature, who is nearly as tall as 2 Dementors, is the leader of the Dementors in Azkaban. Normally, negotiations with the Ministry of Magic and assignment of tasks are all done by this leader. After hearing the descriptions of the Dementors, a gurgling sound came from under the cloak of the Dementor leader. It seems to remain calm and composed. His long experience of dealing with wizards told him that wizards had no effective means to kill Dementors. Even the Patronus charm can only drive away Dementors. The thing that those Dementors described as being able to devour them might be some kind of special magic. In the opinion of the Dementor leader, the devoured Dementors did not actually die, but were moved to another place. After all, even the auras of the Ministry of Magic have no means to eliminate them and can only cooperate with them. What can a little wizard do to them? Don't panic, I'll help. This is what the Dementor leader conveyed to his subordinates. The Dementors also calmed down and gathered around their leader. In this area, a large number of Dementors gathered, immediately causing a thick gray fog. The gray mist was filled with a feeling of despair and coldness. This is an abnormality that will only be caused by the large-scale appearance of Dementors. In such a gray fog, the threshold for wizards to summon their patronuses will be further raised, and the coldness and despair they feel will become more intense. Even if the wizard succeeds in summoning a patronus, an ordinary single patronus will not be able to fight against such thick gray fog and will eventually dissipate. Even if one is an elite aura of the Ministry of Magic, there is almost no chance of escape if he is surrounded by so many Dementors. This made the Dementor leader even more calm. No matter what means the little wizard you are talking about used, since he was sent to Azkaban without any instructions, according to the agreement between us and the Ministry of Magic, we have the right to use his soul, a fresh soul, and one from a little wizard. How long has it been since I last had one? Just as the Dementors were salivating at their leader's words, suddenly, a platinum light appeared in the distance. The light shone far away, and just a ray of light shone over, and the gray mist condensed by a large number of Dementors began to make a hissing sound, like concentrated sulfuric acid poured into water, starting to boil violently. An unlucky Dementor was hit by the golden light, and in an instant, half of his body was destroyed. This sudden scene stunned the Dementors, and they all looked in that direction amidst the blinding platinum light. A tall, indescribable figure stood on the island of Azkaban. Most of his body was covered by the platinum gold light, but the part that was revealed alone had a breathtaking, inspiring power. Dancing white gold tentacles, shapeless wriggling flesh, a human face in the middle of the flesh, and a dragon-like body extending out. It looks like an evil god, but is covered with a strong sacred magic power. It seems both contradictory and strangely harmonious. Under this image, Charles looked at the grey fog at the central fortress of Azkaban Island and the large number of Dementors looming in the grey fog, and he felt his saliva constantly secreted. No wonder there haven't been any fish for so long. It turns out I put the bait in the wrong place. That's great. That's great. You guys are so thoughtful. You all get together, then I don't even have to go fishing. The next moment, the Holy Kingdom spell unfolded, transforming into transparent flame wrapped around an indescribable image. The indescribable figure, with its ancient dragon body extending platinum wings from its flesh and blood, flew with a roar, approaching the direction of the central fortress. Before they even got close, the magic power from the outer layer of the Holy Kingdom spell had already burned the Dementors, causing black smoke to billow. Fear, the fear of encountering a natural enemy, caused a series of giggling sounds. The Dementors gathered around the Dementor leader nervously. Leader, didn't you say you would take action? Hurry up and take action. Defeat this enemy. The Dementor leader also let out a rapid cackle as he looked at the nearly 20-meter tall platinum-colored indescribable being. Should I take action? Deal with this thing. If you have any complaints about me and want to change the leader, you can just tell me directly. There's no need to be so drastic. The rest of the Dementors clucked again. Chief, you can't deal with this thing. Then what should we do? The Dementor leader pondered for a moment and said decisively, call for help. Call for help from the Ministry of Magic. Didn't they leave us a spell to ask for help? Tell them quickly and ask them to rescue the Dementors. The next moment, the Dementors woke up from their dream and quickly retreated into the fortress where the prisoners were held, activating the signal magic left by the Ministry of Magic for Azkaban. The Dementor leader, who was also the only high-level talent among them who could speak English, shouted into the signal magic in broken English, Azkaban has been attacked, and the prison guards have suffered heavy casualties. Requesting support. Dementors have always maintained close ties with the wizarding world. We are also part of the wizarding world. We have made contributions to Azkaban and shed blood for Azkaban. We cannot be forgotten. Help me, along. With such shouting, a magic mark immediately flew out from the central fortress, carrying this information towards the Ministry of Magic. But when the Dementors placed all their hopes on this magic mark, expecting the Ministry of Magic to come to their support as soon as possible after receiving the mark, a hint of sneer appeared at the corner of Ciel's mouth. A magic seal for delivering messages. I'm sorry, but in this magical world, no one knows marking magic better than me. The next moment, with a wave of the mithril wand in Charles's hand, the magic mark, which was known for its speed and stability, turned into fireworks and scattered before it flew out of the sky above Azkaban. Seeing this scene, the Dementors were in despair. Charles was held up by the indescribable platinum-colored figure and came to the central fortress, overlooking the shivering Dementors. Scream, keep screaming, and see if anyone will come to rescue you. Isn't it time for this childish game of house to end? Ciel licked his lips. Be good. You should feel lucky to be a part of my spell. At this time, the Dementor leader looked at the almost invisible platinum-colored existence and took out a piece of parchment from his arms. I never thought that I would need this one day. Charles raised his eyebrows and secretly became alert. It has come to this. Does this mean that the Dementors still have a trump card? What was that parchment? Some kind of magic left behind by the Dementors? Considering how complicated the wizarding world is, it seems not impossible that strange dark creatures like Dementors possess some kind of ancient magic. Charles then became even more alert. He didn't want to be like Voldemort in the original novel, who was defeated unexpectedly despite having an absolute advantage. And the next moment, the Dementor leader read out loud the contents of the parchment. According to the law enacted by the Society for the Protection of Humanoid Magical Creatures in the wizarding world, the Dementor population is a precious magical creature and should be protected. However, considering the simple feelings of wizards in the vast wizarding world, this bill will not be announced to the public. However, the Dementor population can be displayed when it is under a fatal threat and declared a protected animal. Then, the Dementor leader spoke righteously to Charles. You heard it. We Dementors are protected animals. If you want to kill us all today, it will be against the law. Azkaban is not a lawless place. Also, we Dementors have always been a peace-loving race. We never kill people. We have been guarding Azkaban silently, imprisoning evil here, so that so many wizards don't have to worry about the threat of dark wizards. We have made great contributions to peace, and we have silently dedicated ourselves to the magic world. You can't kill us. At this moment, the rest of the Dementors were stunned at first, and then they all nodded repeatedly, expressing their great recognition of their identity as animal protectors. There were also many Dementors clucking and gesticulating there, showing how willing they were to serve as guards of Azkaban. Living in this remote area and willing to guard Azkaban under such difficult conditions, they are simply messengers of peace and model workers in the wizarding world. Killing Dementors is inhumane. Charles was stunned by what the Dementors did, and then he couldn't help grinning. The indescribable demon summoned by the one god spell stuffed the Dementor leader and the strongest Dementors into his mouth and chewed them with a crunching sound visible to the naked eye. The platinum gold light on its body became even richer and brighter. A deep blue reminder sounded in Charles' mind, and his deduction points increased by hundreds of thousands at this time. Charles looked at the remaining Dementors and said quietly, "From now on, you don't need to know any laws of the wizarding world, and you don't need to know any ministry of magic. Azkaban is no longer a prison for prisoners, but..." Ciel waved his wand, and the sign of Azkaban prison hanging on the central fortress changed into another line of words, Azkaban Dementor breeding base. Ciel looked at the Dementors and gave them a kind smile. Of course, Azkaban is your home after all. You certainly have the right to express your opinions. So, regarding the issue of Dementor breeding in Azkaban, are there any Dementors present to object? After a moment, the Dementors looked at each other. The cloak of a Dementor moved, and immediately, it was pinned down by the Dementor next to it and beaten up. Then, everything was silent. Charles nodded in satisfaction. If there is no Dementor objecting, it means it is passed unanimously. Regarding the fact that you have become breeding objects, it is settled. Chapter 73. What if I kill you? The strongest Dark Lord in history. 2-in-1. The Dementors trembled as they looked at Charles, who announced that he had turned them into breeding objects, their eyes filled with fear and despair. In the wizarding world, wizards have always been afraid of them, even the most vicious Death Eaters. Didn't they all tremble at the thought of facing the Dementors in Azkaban? But the Charles who appeared today looked at the Dementors as if they were food. That indescribable white gold figure eats Dementors as if they were buns. This fear, more than the Ministry of Magic or Voldemort's orders, made the Dementors, who had no loyalty at all, submit. Feeling the Dementors' gazes on him, Charles remained calm. He looked at the fortress called Azkaban and walked into it. "Come on, let me see what's in here." The Dementors surrounded Charles as if he were a king. When Charles' footsteps sounded in Azkaban, the numb and desperate prisoners in the cells turned their heads, and a glimmer of light appeared in their cloudy eyes. The sound of human footsteps, which is not common in Azkaban generally speaking. Tasks like delivering meals are done by Dementors, and Ministry of Magic employees will not easily enter Azkaban. It is normal for no one to come in for several months or even a whole year, but once someone comes in, it's usually a special situation. For example, some high-ranking officials from the Ministry of Magic may come in to visit their family and relatives, or a very small number of prisoners may be pardoned. Whether it is the former or the latter, it is a glimmer of hope for the prisoners who have become numb and desperate. Therefore, when Charles walked past the cages, the prisoners leaned on the bars and pleaded with him. "Are you here to free me? I have money. I have money. I know where a treasure is buried. I am willing to give it all away. I have a distant relative who is an official in the Ministry of Magic, sir. Perhaps you two are colleagues. For this reason, please say a few words to me and pardon me." Charles watched the prisoner's performance calmly and frowned slightly. Of course, not out of sympathy or any compassion. After all, 99% of those who were arrested and sent to Azkaban had committed serious illegal acts, and more than half of them were dark wizards. They deserved to be imprisoned here even if it was an innocent person, like Sirius Black. What the hell does that have to do with Charles? What made Charles frown was the state of these prisoners. How much happiness can be produced from this state of numbness and despair? The Dementors in Azkaban really don't understand the principle of sustainable development. They just want to drain the pond to catch fish. He turned to the Dementor leader whom he had temporarily decided on. "You need to change your attitude and the way you treat prisoners in the future. If you keep them so desperate, how do you get enough to eat? If you don't have enough to eat, won't the output of our Dementor breeding base be greatly affected? When The Dementor leader heard what Ciel said. He looked thoughtful. That seems to be the case if the prisoner is always so desperate. It really won't produce any happy emotions, but how to change it? As if Charles saw through its confusion, he said quietly, just like raising dairy cows on a human farm, we need to feed them well, give them good water, and let them sleep well, so that they are in a good mood. This way, we can squeeze out enough milk every once in a while. You can also try not to squeeze them every day. You can stay away from this fortress and let their tense nerves rest, or ask them if there is anything they can't let go of, and find out the news. This way, their desire for life will be stimulated, and they will no longer be numb and desperate, and they will naturally be able to produce more happiness and hope. Also, in order to keep their spirits strong, competition is necessary. We can introduce competition and a last place elimination mechanism among them. Just give them some activities. The prisoners at the front of the line can get good food and drink, get news from the outside world, and even have their wishes fulfilled to a certain extent. Those prisoners who are at the end of the line for several consecutive times will receive the Dementor's kiss. As a result, intrigue and competition were born in Azkaban. Competition is the driving force. Every time a prisoner escapes death and feels ecstasy, or is rewarded, it will become your food. Wouldn't it be possible for you to obtain much more nutrients this way than simply keeping them locked up like this? Instantly, the Dementors let out a series of cackling noises from beneath their cloaks, and looked at Ciel with a feeling of immense adoration and admiration. Indeed, if we do as Charles said, these prisoners in Azkaban will be able to provide much more happiness and hope than before. The prisoners who heard this felt a chill all over their bodies and looked at Charles with hatred. Demon, are you going to use us as playthings for the Dementors? Feeding us to the Dementors? What is your purpose? Several dark wizards could no longer suppress their anger and started cursing, with all kinds of obscenities pouring out. But the next moment, the cell became quiet because as Charles waved his wand, a series of thorns grew out of the ground and pierced through the black wizards who were cursing so harshly. With a flick of his hand, Charles threw the bloody dark wizards into the middle of the Dementors. They are yours now. Following Ciel's orders, the Dementors were overjoyed. Being able to eat several souls at once was something I never dared to imagine before. It seems that having a lawless and ruthless master is not necessarily a bad thing. When these dark wizards were greedily kissed by the Dementors, all that were left were their zombie-like bodies. Charles waved his wand again, and a light fell, burning the bodies into ashes. At this moment, Charles breathed a sigh of relief as he looked at the dark wizards who were silent as a mouse, and the Azkaban cell that had finally quieted down. Good, it's finally quiet. Then we will follow this rule from now on. Any objections? Ordinary dark wizards trembled just like the group of dark wizards in Nocturne Alley. They have always been very aware of the time, seeing that Charles was not someone to be trifled with. No one dared to speak out against it. What's more, they changed their minds and realized that according to Charles's method, although those who were eliminated at the last place would be miserable, the lives of the remaining people would be much better than before. If you can even rank ahead in the competition, life can even be said to be quite comfortable. I probably won't survive many years in Azkaban anyway, so it might as well be like this. It was just that the ordinary dark wizards remained silent, but there were a few troublemakers deep in the cell who didn't seem to approve of Charles. A tall, thin, handsome man with black hair, gray eyes, and an indelible air of arrogance sneered. What is this? Threat? Intimidation? Little devil, the killing and death I have seen are beyond your imagination. Voldemort can't scare me, and neither can you. The Dementors began to stir, as if they wanted to give the man a deep kiss to shut his mouth forever, but Ciel waved his hand to stop the Dementor's actions. He looked at the man with interest. With this appearance, coupled with being imprisoned deep in the cell, this is where senior Death Eaters are imprisoned. Sirius Black, Ciel asked curiously. The man showed a hint of surprise, as if he didn't expect Charles to call out his name. Who are you? Do you know me? Without answering the man's question, Ciel raised an eyebrow. He remembered Sirius Black, a popular character in the original novel. After being imprisoned in Azkaban for more than 10 years, he escaped from prison after seeing the news about Harry Potter and Peter Pettigrew, and went on to protect Harry and punish the murderer without hesitation. This character and persistence are truly valuable. That should produce a lot of happiness and hope, right? Excellent food for Dementors. Charles smiled and said faintly, not only do I know you, I also know the truth of what happened back then. The Fidelius curse was broken, and the secret keeper revealed the secret. Actually, the secret keeper was not you, but Peter Pettigrew, right? Serious. Black's eyes widened, as if he had never expected that Charles could reveal the truth of what happened that year. Not only that, Ciel looked at him and continued, "Do you want to know how Harry Potter is doing now? Tisk tisk, he has lived such a miserable life for the past 11 years, living under someone else's roof, in a closet, wearing other people's rags. Do you want to know? Besides, don't you want to know what happened to Peter Pettigrew in the past 11 years? Serious." Black threw himself against the railing and let out a furious roar. "What did you say, Harry? Potter was abused? Peter Pettigrew is still alive. Tell me all about it," Charles sneered. "Want to know? Then try your best to survive, contribute more happiness and hope, and when you have collected enough wishes, I will grant you one. But now, you must first be punished for your previous transgression." The next moment, Ciel waved his hand and Sirius Black flew out of the cell. The Dementors surrounded him, swallowing the hope and anger that suddenly became strong in him. It was not until Sirius Black looked dazed, almost demented, but with a trace of tenacity still left on his face, that Ciel called a halt and threw Sirius back into the cell. "Take good care of him. His tenacity will be a great help in the breeding of Dementors. There aren't many wizards of this level who are so tenacious." Witnessing the way Ciel beheaded Sirius, even the senior Death Eaters deep inside the cell fell silent, looking at Ciel with fear in their eyes. It was hard for them to imagine how a little wizard could possess such powerful strength and yet have such a heart of stone. It's like under the appearance of a little wizard, there is a profit-seeking adult. But all the other senior Death Eaters kept their mouths shut, except for one crazy woman who was still staring at Charles with her eyes that were like bulging light bulbs and making bursts of strange laughter. "I won't play any of your bullshit tricks. Your tricks can't scare me. You can't do anything to me, and you don't dare to do anything to me. No one in the wizarding world dares to touch me, not even the Aurors from the Ministry of Magic. They put me in Azkaban, but look, who dares to touch me?" The crazy woman excitedly pulled down her sleeves, revealing the dark mark on her arm, her eyes filled with morbid obsession and madness. "Everyone knows that I belong to the Master. The Master will come back one day, and I will bathe in his glory. Who of you dares to touch me? The Master will not let anyone who hurts me go." Charles looked at the crazy woman and called out her name, "Bella Lestrange, Voldemort's most insane follower. Rumor has it she's also Voldemort's woman." Bella Lestrange first chuckled, as if she was happy that Ciel said she was Voldemort's woman. Then she scolded Charles again. "Who do you think you are? How dare you speak the Master's name? Do you know that the Master is..." Before she could finish her words, Ciel waved his wand and Bella Lestrange floated up. She was still laughing at this moment, as if she was certain that Charles would be like those angry Aurors and would not dare to touch her after all. Who wouldn't be afraid of the Dark Lord who could return at any time? "You won't kill me, you can't kill me, and you don't dare to kill me." Faced with her firm and crazy words, Charles sighed helplessly. Yes, Bella Lestrange, the backbone of the Death Eaters, is also related to many subsequent plots. If she is killed, the subsequent plots will be in chaos. "So what?" Ciel whispered. "No one is unkillable. The world will continue to function just the same without any one plot. Destiny? It's messed up. I've already used cheats, but I still have to rely on the plot. Isn't that too embarrassing?" Ciel's whispers made Bella Lestrange look puzzled. "What are you saying? Why don't you put me down now?" The next moment, Charles smiled. "If you didn't hear clearly, I'll tell you again. What I just said is that you are going to die, and even Voldemort can't save you." Immediately, Charles waved his wand decisively. Bella Lestrange, the notorious Death Eater and the backbone of Voldemort's future comeback, had her neck cracked with a clear sound. She was cured permanently of her madness, with medicine prescribed by Charles himself. Then, Ciel's eyes swept over the other senior Death Eaters who had terrified faces. Now, there shouldn't be anyone impatient to come out and say anything, right? At this moment, even the craziest and most senior Death Eaters lowered their heads to show their submission and obedience. Ciel waved his wand again. "Since you have recognized yourselves as members of the Azkaban Dementor breeding base, your previous identification numbers are no longer valid. Everything in the past is an illusion. From now on, just focus on raising Dementors." As he waved his wand, In front of the horrified gazes of the Azkaban prisoners and Dementors, the dark mark on the Death Eater's wrists faded into nothing. The dark mark that has left the entire wizarding world helpless and difficult to wash off is so easy to erase for Ciel, who has reached the pinnacle of marking magic. And after replacing the dark mark, one after another, marks unique to Charles were branded on all the prisoners. After doing all this, Charles walked out of the Azkaban cell. Behind Charles, the prisoners who had just reacted all gasped. The Death Eaters were even more shocked as they watched the dark mark disappear from their bodies and be replaced by a new one. What did he do? He erased a mark of his master. No, the Dark Lord. You know who. Who the hell is he? Senior Death Eater swallowed with a gulp, a look of awe in his eyes. I don't know who he is. I only know that he can do such a thing at the age of a little wizard. Perhaps what we witnessed today is the birth of the most powerful Dark Lord in history. Today, I updated 12,000 chapters, which means I have completed the chapter I owed yesterday and today's 10,000 chapters. I am not feeling well, so I cannot update any more chapters. Thank you all for your support. Chapter 74, The Ultimate Divine Soul Extraction. 2-in-1. The most powerful Dark Lord ever. When the prisoners in the jail heard this, some looked horrified, while others had shining eyes. If someone else had said this about the so-called strongest Dark Lord in history, they would probably have scoffed at it. But when the person who said this was the senior Death Eater who knew Voldemort best, the meaning was obviously extraordinary. Even the most senior Death Eaters, after witnessing Ciel's performance just now, had to admit that at this age Ciel already possessed strength far beyond the imagination of ordinary wizards, and that cruel heart that will do anything to achieve its goal. Voldemort, who is the same age as me, is probably not even worthy of carrying Charles' shoes if Ciel is given a few more years to calm down. Perhaps he will create a record for being the youngest to be crowned a Dark Lord. By that time, will this group of people also be considered as Charles' first team? Could it be that Ciel asked the Dementors to arrange a competition for them in order to gather the team? When they thought of this, a hint of heat flashed in everyone's eyes. Even if these people were released from Azkaban, they had no other way to go but to go all the way to the end. It might not be a bad idea to join forces with Charles, the promising little Dark Lord. So, all those who had previously resisted the so-called last-in first-out system couldn't help but have an idea in their minds. You must perform well and strive to meet the expectations of this little Dark Lord. By then, perhaps I will be released from Azkaban and entrusted with an important task. The originally desperate and numb atmosphere in the Azkaban cell suddenly became full of vitality at this moment. The Dementors who surrounded Charles and left Azkaban also felt the changes in the cell. The food, which was extremely delicious to them, was being distributed continuously, making them open their mouths wide and start to feast on it. Even if they eat as much as they want, hope is still being born in Azkaban. For a moment, the Dementors were even more convinced of Charles. This person is not only incredibly powerful and has a bright future, but he can also really fill the stomachs of these Dementors. Anyway, in the wizarding world, Dementors are just protective creatures. What's wrong with being a breeding object here in the Shire? At least I can eat my fill. And with this great amount of hope, the number of Dementors, which had been greatly reduced due to Ciel's previous eating, actually began to increase slowly again. Charles looked at the Dementors and found that some of them were splitting and producing new individuals. There was a strange look in his eyes. So, Dementors increase their numbers by splitting themselves apart. This method of reproduction is indeed very efficient for breeding, as it saves the process of pregnancy and childbirth. As long as there are enough positive emotions for them to feed on, the number of Dementors will quickly multiply. But there are still not enough prisoners in this breeding base who can provide positive emotions. At this rate, when will I be able to let go of the Dementors? Ciel narrowed his eyes. I need to sort out the Azkaban breeding base before I go to Hogwarts. We need to get more prisoners, but it's too easy to be exposed if we arrest people in the wizarding world. After all, there aren't many people in the wizarding world. It's better to do it in the Muggle world. The Dustless Land charm has eliminated all traces, and the Ministry of Magic cannot detect that this was done by a wizard. With a loud bang of apparition, Ciel walked out of Diagon Alley and into the bustling streets of London. It was already early morning, and the newsboy was already shouting out today's hot topics. Headline: News: Pablo Escobar, the world's richest drug lord, surrendered to the Colombian government and was allowed to be held in a luxurious prison he built himself. Want to know what's in prison? Want to see the pretty girls who are sent to prison? Sir, please give me a newspaper. Ciel Raised an eyebrow. It is now 1991. As far as he can remember, such a world-shaking news did happen at this time in his previous life. Then, Charles bought a newspaper from the newsboy when I saw the brilliant smile of Pablo Escobar, the world's biggest drug lord, in the newspaper. My dusty memories became clear again. A notorious drug lord was able to make a government compromise with him and allow him to be detained in its own private prison. There are casinos, spas, bars, nightclubs, and even a private helicopter pad in the prison. It is more like an extremely luxurious resort than a prison. In his previous life, Charles was both envious and resentful of this. Look at how wonderful other people's lives are. A drug lord can make the government bow its head. How awesome. But now, as Charles looked at the drug lord Pablo's smile, there was only one thought in his mind. Look how happy and bright his smile is, and the men around him all smile more brightly than the others. It seems that this is a cheerful and optimistic criminal group with a large number of people. Great, I like this kind of drug lord who loves to laugh. This should make a significant contribution to my dementor breeding business in Azkaban. Then, Charles waved his wand lightly in a secluded place. The time and space mark gushed out from the tip of the magic wand, and in a mysterious way, it sank into the newspaper and landed on Pablo Escobar from thousands of miles away in a luxurious prison in Colombia. Pablo Escobar was laughing with his men, celebrating the compromise made by the Colombian government with him. But at this moment, a ray of light emerged from the void, fell on Pablo, and left a mysterious mark. Pablo and his men were shocked by this scene. They even suspected that something had been added to the wine they had just drunk, causing them to have hallucinations. The next moment, there was a deafening explosion. Then, an 11-year-old boy appeared in front of them. The drug lords opened their mouths wide at this magical scene before they could react. Everything around them seemed to come alive as Charles waved his magic wand, and wrapped around the drug lords, tying them together like crickets. Charles held the rope in one hand and picked up the drug lord leaders of the Pablo group. Then he used apparition again and threw them into Azkaban. 1 second he was partying and drinking in a luxurious private prison, and the next second he was thrown onto an isolated island by a teenager in an incredible way. The drug lord Pablo and his men were all stunned, looking at Charles in front of them. Shouting and cursing continued. Some people even pulled out pistols from their waists or arms and tried to shoot Charles, but soon, the scene became quiet. A pistol bullet was blocked by the dragon armor technique on Charles' body. As a reward for the brave act of shooting himself, Ciel hung the shooter up and left him floating in the air, where his soul was eaten away bit by bit by the Dementors. Although Muggles cannot see Dementors, they can see the cold fog when Dementors appear and feel the terrifying despair. Pablo and the others looked at the fog spreading around them in fear. Their intuition told them that there was something in the fog that they were instinctively afraid of. The drug lord suspended in the mist's expression changed from ferocious and terrified to calm and numb, and he fell to the ground like a walking corpse. Such a scene made the vicious drug lords huddle together. And finally Pablo gritted his teeth and spoke. Who are you, sir? Are you a messenger of God or the devil? Did you ask us to come here to be judged? I know I may have committed a lot of sins, but I also did a lot of good things. I built churches, I provided many jobs for the people. Ciel raised his eyebrows and said calmly, I'm not that boring. I don't do trials, and I'm not interested in hearing about what you've done. I'm not a judge, so I don't care about these things. I brought you here only because I saw you guys were laughing happily and seemed to love laughing. Since you love to laugh, you should laugh more. The Dementors here feed on laughter, so you have to help me take good care of them. Following Charles' words, drug lord Pablo and others barely understood their current situation. The drug lords who killed people without blinking an eye had a look of shattered worldview in their eyes just because they laughed happily in the newspaper. This little wizard captured them and fed them to monsters called Dementors. Damn, is there no law in this place called the magical world? Can't we take care of this little wizard? It's so cruel and vicious. Are they going to spend the rest of their lives on such a deserted island? For a moment, everyone showed a look of despair, but at this time, Charles knew that he still had to give the prisoners some hope and not let them have no hope at all. So after pondering for a moment, Charles said, if you contribute enough, not only will you have the chance to leave here, you may also get magical items as rewards. Magic, understand? After hearing this, Pablo and his men were stunned for a moment, and then a fiery look appeared in their eyes. Magic, is this how Charles subdues them? This is much more useful than a gun, and it can appear or disappear at will. If they had magic, wouldn't it be much easier for them to transport goods? Bah, if we already have magic, why are we still transporting goods? It's not impossible to be president for fun. Even the legendary immortality may be achieved through magic. Pablo swallowed with a gulp then, with a look of determination in his eyes, he took out a personal photo album and handed it respectfully to Charles. Master Wizard, I have many photos with other drug lords here. We are all a group of people who love to laugh. Perhaps we can be of some help to you, Master Wizard. When Charles saw the photo album, a smile appeared on his face immediately afterwards. A series of apparition explosions were heard one after another. Drug lords who were tied up tightly with ropes were taken to Azkaban by Charles and handed over to the Dementors for processing. After hearing that there was hope of obtaining magic here, most of the drug lords' eyes lit up for a moment. An unprecedented strong feeling of hope and happiness filled Azkaban as the Dementors devoured happiness and hope. Only one thought remained in their minds. I can't finish it. I can't finish it at all. Woo, 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 woo. Where have we Dementors ever had such a rich meal? There is no two suns in the sky. Lord Ciel is the only sun in our hearts. At the same time, the Dementors began to divide continuously due to sufficient nutrition supply. Their numbers kept rising and soon exceeded their numbers before being eaten by Charles, and even began to increase exponentially when Charles saw this scene. His eyes were filled with the ecstasy of an old farmer seeing a good harvest after so much hard work. The harvest time is finally here. As the magic wand was waved, the spell of Only God and the spell of the Holy Kingdom burst out one after another. The platinum-colored sacred light annihilated the Dementors one after another, and the tentacles rolled up the Dementors one by one, swallowing them up with crackling sounds as more and more Dementors were killed. The range of the Holy Land spell was growing larger at a speed visible to the naked eye. The initial Holy Kingdom spell only covered a 20-meter radius centered on Charles, and could not even completely cover the image summoned by the one and only God spell, but now, its range has grown from 20 meters to 30 meters, 40 meters, and finally fixed at 50 meters. Everything within a radius of 50 meters centered on Shire, both in the sky and on the ground, belongs to the Holy Kingdom. Not only has the range expanded, the sacred magic within it has also become more dazzling, and its killing effect on dark magic has been at least twice as strong as before. The changes in the Only Eye, the Most High God mantra are equally significant. The summoned indescribable platinum-colored image soared to a height of nearly 30 meters. Truly like a god, the platinum-colored sacred magic on its body is as dense as if it were real, as if it were covered in a layer of platinum-colored armor. When the mantra of the Holy Kingdom was entangled with the mantra of the only Supreme God, the sacred fire surged like a wave with every move. Along with an excited holy roar, a straight shock wave swept through the clouds above Azkaban, which were dark and stained by negative emotions all year round, and actually plowed a gap of hundreds of meters in the clouds above. Azkaban, which has never seen sunlight all year round, finally has sunlight shining in it. Looking at this scene, Charles' eyes were also filled with shock. The power of the two holy spells more than doubled when the two are combined. The power is at least 3 times that of before. If he could continue to eat Dementors like this, Ciel believed that he would be able to let the wizarding world experience what the ultimate holiness is. In addition to the surge in power of holy spells, Charles' deduction points also skyrocketed because of the previous wave of Dementors in such a short period of time. The deduction points skyrocketed by as much as 1 million. Dementors are indeed extremely evil dark creatures in the magic world. The magic power they contain is quite impressive, and the points they provide are also extremely large. 8 dozen Dementors combined are almost as powerful as a fire dragon. In addition to these gains, Charles also had an unexpected surprise. Deep Blue sounded a reminder in Ciel's mind. The host has obtained high-level soul materials. The points for deducing soul-related magic will be greatly reduced. The host has witnessed the Dementors kiss many times, and witnessed the entire process of soul stripping, and gained knowledge that can be used for deduction, soul extraction. It takes 300,000 points to perform this magic for the first time. Do you want to perform it? Chapter 75 Soul Magic. Don't you think you are too extreme? 2 in 1. Ciel's eyes widened as he looked at these hints. Soul magic. He came to Azkaban to find the Dementors with the simple intention of enhancing the power of the holy spell and getting some deduction points. He never expected to have such an unexpected surprise. The magic in the Harry Potter world is varied, but the magic involving the soul is extremely extraordinary. Without exception, the most famous one among them is naturally the Horcrux. Split your soul into pieces and entrust them to an object. As long as the Horcrux is indestructible, you will be immortal. Even someone as powerful as Dumbledore, who wielded the Elder Wand, was unable to do anything to Voldemort because of this. In addition, The magic on the resurrection stone also involves the soul realm. It can be said that no magic related to the soul is simple. Even the soul sucking that dementors use to feed makes wizards shudder. There is no way to save the people whose souls are sucked away, and even Phoenix tears are helpless. Charles had never expected that in the process of devouring dementors, he would actually gain soul-related materials and abilities. Looking at the soul-absorbing ability that could be deduced, Charles was indeed a little jealous. In the original book, this ability never seems to work in the hands of the dementors. After all, it is quite troublesome and slow to activate, but if Charles were to perform a few more deductions, I believe the soul-absorbing ability would become much more flexible and faster. By then, the true power of this ability will be revealed. After all, soul absorption ignores protective spells, just like the Dementor's Kiss, which cannot be blocked by protective spells such as the Shield Charm. This is different from the magic-breaking effects of Ciel's Night's Edge Curse and Lightless Sun Curse. It directly ignores all the enemy's magical defenses. If the soul is extracted unexpectedly, even Dumbledore might fall, but after feeling jealous, Charles temporarily suppressed the urge to accumulate points in his soul absorption ability. After all, his fighting skills are already quite sufficient, and his strength in wizard form is enough to defeat most of the professors at Hogwarts. If he uses the animagus form and unleashes an ancient dragon roar, the destructive power will definitely be at the top level. On this basis, one more soul absorption is not enough to bring about any qualitative change in Charles' strength. Moreover, even if relevant materials are available, the first deduction of soul absorption will cost 300,000 points. It is conceivable that subsequent deductions will inevitably cost an astonishing amount. Instead of spending so many points on soul absorption, which was not enough to bring about a qualitative change in Ciel's strength, it would be better to improve his animagus transformation or deduce a few more dragon language magics. Maybe his strength would increase even more. As for soul-related magic, it will not be too late to invest in this area after collecting more materials in the field of soul magic and further reducing the consumption of deduction points. As for where to find such materials, Charles already had an idea in his mind. Horcruxes are the representatives of the field of soul-splitting magic. If I can get one, Deep Blue will naturally be able to obtain more soul magic materials from it. If it is Voldemort's Horcrux, its value will be even higher, because it may be one of the few examples in the history of magic where a soul has split multiple times. The locket is a little hard to find, Nagini is also hard to find, and the diary will have to be found at the Malfoy's house. As for the Hufflepuff cup, it is in Bella Lestrange's vault at Gringotts. I just killed Bella Lestrange, so it's relatively easy to open the vault, but Gringotts was just robbed once, so it must be the most heavily guarded place now. It would be troublesome to go there at this time, not to mention Harry Potter. Dumbledore is always watching his actions. I don't want to get into trouble. After some calculations, Ciel decided that the easiest items to obtain were the Resurrection Stone Ring and the Ravenclaw's crown. One is in the Gaunt family mansion, and the other is in the Room of Requirement at Hogwarts. However, the protective magic attached to the Resurrection Stone Ring is the most powerful among the Horcruxes. Even Dumbledore was defeated by it due to his carelessness, and it even doomed his death. Charles was still a little wary of this and didn't intend to touch it until he was sure. Therefore, his target was still set on the Ravenclaw crown. After I go to Hogwarts, I have to find a chance to go into the Room of Requirement and get the tiara. I don't know if the crown is good or not, or how many points it can provide. It shouldn't be stained with hair oil or something, right? Thoughts flashed through Charles' mind. Then his attention returned to the Dementors in Azkaban. During the time when he was concentrating on thinking, the number of Dementors that were continuously devoured increased again, much more than before. Densely packed figures in black cloaks wandered in the thick gray fog. The air was so cold it was almost freezing. If there were other wizards here, they would probably be frightened to death. Even if you have trained your Patronus, you probably won't be able to drive away Dementors of this density. But Charles frowned. The number of Dementors has increased a lot, but the drug lords and their men that Charles had captured before, there are hundreds of them in total. When a person is just captured and has not yet been absorbed by the Dementors, the emotions of happiness and hope that can be generated are the greatest. Coupled with the hope of obtaining magic, the joy and hope exuded by these drug lords have not completely dissipated until now. Logically speaking, the number of Dementors should be able to increase further, but the Dementors all stopped reproducing at the same time. During the period that Charles observed, their number did not increase at all. At first, Charles thought that the Dementors had not learned their lesson and had started to play tricks, but soon, Charles discovered that things were not as he thought. He asked the newly elected Dementor leader why they did not continue to reproduce. The answer given by the Dementor leader made Charles frown, and a look of confusion appeared on his face. Fear, you mean, the Dementor's instincts tell you that they can continue to reproduce now. This number is the limit. Otherwise, more and more Dementors will attract some terrible things. What on earth is that terrible thing, Ciel? Asked the Dementor leader, but the leader couldn't say anything and could only express himself in halting English. I don't know either. This feeling of fear seems to be an instinct that has been flowing in the blood of Dementors since ancient times, just like humans are afraid of snakes. That is the nature passed down from ancient times. Our fear is even stronger, just like facing an irresistible natural enemy. Once there are too many of them, they will be alarmed. Fear is preventing us from increasing our numbers. We cannot fight this instinct, Charles. Browse for even more the ancient fear that runs in the Dementor's blood? Ancient times again, including this time. Charles has heard words related to ancient times more than once. In reality, the goblins mentioned the ancient space passage that has existed since ancient times, and Dark kept talking about the ancients and the great old ones. Now the Dementors also mentioned the ancient times. What was there in that era? With these questions in mind, Ciel looked at the group of Dementors in front of him whose numbers had stopped growing, and his expression gradually sank. The breeding of Dementors was related to the infinite growth of his sacred spells, and could also provide him with a large number of deduction points if we can only maintain the current scale. There is no doubt that the speed at which Shire acquires resources will be greatly reduced after all. According to Charles' observation, although the reproduction of Dementors does not require pregnancy and childbirth, a Dementor cannot split continuously in a short period of time. Newly born Dementors also need some time to grow before they can split into new individuals. The limited population size will naturally reduce the production of Dementors. According to Charles's estimation, if he stayed at this scale, he would be able to get about 1,000,000 points by coming to Azkaban to harvest once a month. Although it was already a very generous income, it was not enough compared to the bottomless demand for deduction points from Charles currently. Ciel can barely make ends meet by relying on the inventory, the extra money he can get after going to Hogwarts, and even the points he will get from demolishing the Dragon's Blood Sea in the future. However, if the problem of the limit on the number of Dementors is not solved, the speed at which Charles' strength increases will inevitably be restricted. Charles' expression darkened. Let's find some research materials. Maybe we can get some explanations. The next moment, he left Azkaban and appeared in Diagon Alley. Charles walked into Bloomingdale's bookstore. Of course the staff there knew this big customer and came over to serve him attentively. Mr. Charles, what kind of book do you need? Charles said. I want books on breeding magical creatures. Hearing this, the clerk was a little surprised, but his good professionalism made him smile and say without any hesitation, no problem. Breeding magical creatures is an advanced subject. There is a lot of information. Our bookstore has a complete collection of information, whether it's owl breeding, toad breeding, or other rarer magical animals. We have information here. What kind of breeding do you need? Charles said. Do you have any information on breeding Dementors? The clerk had a big smile on his face and was about to nod his head, but from the next moment, his expression gradually became stiff. Sorry, my ears may not be working well recently, so I didn't hear you clearly. What do you want to breed? Charles repeated, raising. Dementors, are there any reference books on this? After hearing Ciel's request, the clerk showed an expression as if he didn't know what to say. Why do you keep Dementors? Charles said as a matter of course, because Dementors are cute. Don't you think the sound of them gurgling is cute? Also, Dementors are full of treasures. Apart from other things, the black cloaks they carry are also valuable if they can be recycled and reused. The clerk's three views were almost shattered. There are people in the wizarding world who actually think Dementors are fucking cute. Even if someone says that the Acromantula is cute, it is more normal than saying that the Dementors are cute. The clerk looked at Charles with concern. Mr. Charles, are you okay? Do you want us to send you to the psychiatric department of St. Mungo's Hospital? Ciel sighed. It seems that ordinary bookstores like Flourish and Blots do not have high-end information related to Dementor breeding, but what about other more common information? Then, Ciel continued to ask the clerk about other books on the breeding of magical animals. Do you have any books on basilisk breeding, three-headed dog breeding, etc.? When the clerk heard the names of these magical animals, his expression began to change again, and then a look of vigilance appeared in his eyes. and he glanced around a few times after making sure that no one was eavesdropping nearby. He spoke to Charles, Mr. Ciel, all the magical creature information you asked about is contraband. If I didn't know that you were our big customer, I would have suspected that you were a sting operation sent by the Ministry of Magic. To tell you the truth, we really don't have these books, and the nearby bookstores don't have them either, but I can show you a way to hopefully find this knowledge. After leaving Flourish and Blots, Charles did not rush back to the Leaky Cauldron, but went to Nocturne Alley again. Some things cannot be asked through formal channels, but they may not be impossible to obtain through informal channels. The dark wizards in Nocturne Alley turned green when they saw Charles enter again. He can come in several times in a few days. Even the dark wizards are not as diligent as Ciel in coming here. Why is this damn little wizard here again? Exclamation mark. They were slightly relieved only when they heard Charles say that he came here just to ask some questions, and that he was not going to rob or bleed as long as they can get rid of this evil star as soon as possible. They can reveal any news. However, after Charles repeated the question he had just asked in Flourish and Blots, the dark wizards fell silent, with a look of horror in their eyes. Breeding dementors? Breeding basilisks? What kind of crazy operation is this? Even a dark wizard could not do such a thing. Compared to these two things, the three-headed dog is much more normal. After being shocked, the dark wizards shook their heads, saying that they had no information on this matter. In response, Charles sighed, but he wasn't too disappointed. Then he asked the dark wizards another question. Then, do you have any information or products on soul magic, for example, Horcruxes, and the immortality of the soul, the separation of the soul, the fusion of the soul, the distortion of the soul? Any information will do. You are dark wizards, so this should be relevant to your major, right? The dark wizards looked at each other, and each of us showed a look of shame. Charles shook his head in dissatisfaction. No, why don't you know anything? It's fine if you can't raise dangerous creatures, but as a dark wizard, you can't even play with souls. Are you really incompetent as a dark wizard? After a while, an old black wizard said with a bitter look on his face and trembling, Lord Ciel, you really think too highly of us in such a high-end field. If we knew this, would we still be able to make a living in Nocturne Alley and be terrified by your robbing? Besides, this is all about Horcruxes, immortality of the soul, soul separation and so on. Although I don't understand them, they all feel quite evil and sound scary. Don't you think you're being too extreme for this at your age? End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.